All right. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Anarcho Taco, as always, welcome. And Deadpool, welcome to the stream. Nice to have you in here. So welcome. Looks like everything's working properly here. Yeah, interesting. Oh, hey, Ju Chang. Welcome back. Good to see you. Glad you're coming back and hanging out for the conversation. Good. That's always good. And getting into a few things. Look like we got some conversation going already. That's always good. It's always welcomed. Let's move this down a little maybe. Looks like I was playing with my green screen settings here. Looks like it's maybe slightly see through me a little bit, but that's all right. Maybe I can fix that real quick. Still a little, let's see. Tone that down just a little bit there. There we go. Maybe that's it. Sometimes the camera refocuses and then it throws off my settings for that green screen. But and we got Catboy coming in. Welcome, Catboy. Welcome. Good to have you in here. Got a nice crew already going here. Should be some good conversation coming up. Oh, and then wait a minute. I just set this a minute ago. How did I lose this? So this should show here. There we go. That's what that should look like. There we go. All right. Yeah, welcome everybody. We got a weekend coming up. Seems like the news is kind of normalizing a little bit. Each day that passes, that fear of a overthrow of our government by the president who doesn't want to leave seems to be shrinking down and getting to be less and less like we might actually have normal stuff going on. So, yeah. Let's get into it. So there was this, which is weird, right? So I just said the fears of what Trump is doing are sort of lessening. We'll have a number of stories that show a lot of this seemed to just be for play, right? There's not any actual substance. There's just for his fans, just for Trump's fans. But we're starting to see the narrative of what the next 4 years are going to look like, both from Trump, who, if all goes well, will not be president, and it looks like he won't be, and then also from Biden as well for the next 4 years. He's starting to make appointments, and of course, people are fairly disappointed unless you're a Republican or a very mainstream Democrat. Then these probably seem like fine picks, but in general, people aren't too happy. So we had Trump with this tweet earlier. Biden can only enter the White House as president if he can prove that his ridiculous 80 million votes were not fraudulent or illegally obtained. When you see what happened in Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee, massive voter fraud, he's got a big unsolvable problem. So for starters, Trump, how's Trump going to stop Biden, right? It's not like he has some way of stopping Biden from coming in. And really, the bottom line is you don't have to, that's not how our country works. You don't have to prove that that you got those legitimately, right? From a logic standpoint, how would you even do that? How would you prove that 80 million votes were done correctly? In fact, the proof of that is when the states certify the elections, right? Especially the swing states. Let's face it. Most of these swing states have conservative legislatures, right? So they're fairly, there's a large Republican contingent. So if they go through and certify the election in those states, there's your proof. That's all you need, which has pretty much been done. So there is only really one box left to check, and that's the actual Electoral College voting, which is still a little ways off, but it looks like that's probably fine because most of these states, if you were at this point to try to do what Trump wants you to do, which is back out of what the people decided and then have the legislature decide those votes, I think you would have a big issue on your hands. You would see some anger. You would see some. I think it would go past protesting. You would see the people stepping up and doing something about it. So I think we're in good shape. Thanks, Lila Andrea. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Glad you're here. Feel free to join the conversation. So it's great. Glad you're in here. And where are we at with things? Right. So we'll move. Oh yeah, there was let's see. Catboy saying, you think we will get to normal stuff or the level of normal that tilt not towards totalitarianism. Yeah, I think I think pretty soon here things are going to level out. I think we'll stop seeing these, most of these court cases are sort of dying, and they're dying in a ridiculous way. We have a couple stories on that and just how ridiculous the lawsuits are that we're seeing. And I think those are, they're kind of one by one getting thrown out of court. And as we'll see today, it may be that the point of these lawsuits isn't really to try to overturn the election. I mean, of course, Trump would love to do that, but it seems that there's maybe I wouldn't say a larger purpose, but a separate purpose going on here at play with these lawsuits. And it's perhaps to set up more self-promotion and setting up a narrative for Trump, who it's looking more and more likely like he's not gone. Like, I don't think he's going to retain the presidency in the next 4 years, but I don't think we've heard the last of Trump. I think there's a road that's being laid out in front of Trump that he's going to follow, and he's going to continue to be a thorn in our sides for a while. And then we'll just have to deal with the central Democrats and what they're going to do, which is essentially, it's like 1980s Republicans, right? They're sort of going to carry out the kind of stuff that was going on in the 80s, which was destructive to our country. So we're just going to continue those kinds of things for a while. So yeah, but it will happen. Things will not degrade as fast as they would under Trump. So hopefully we get to that point soon. Where am I? I've got my, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Getting a little turned around. I changed up my desk. I found an extra monitor in the house that, wasn't being used, so I hooked it up, and so I'm just getting used to the new setup here. I gotta keep looking all over the place, a little disoriented. All right, so we have this. I think Taco mentioned this the other day. Sydney records hottest November night on record, right? So that's obviously we're seeing more and more of this stuff around the world, right? And we still have people who want to deny that there's climate change going on and that there's warming taking place. And yet I've lived in a number of places where there's clear evidence, not just the recordings, but also just the way people are living their lives. There's evidence that 30 years ago, the temperatures were different than they are now, right? And it's also backed up by actual, by the actual recordings of temperatures. But I've heard people make arguments. In fact, that one writer was doing it for a while. What was his name? The guy who wrote Jurassic Park and stuff like that. He had a lot of attacks on, well, the way we recorded temperatures 100 years ago were different than how we, not as precise as how we do it now. But there's pretty much a mountain of evidence here. So Sydney recorded a minimum overnight temperature of 25.4 degrees Celsius and hit 40 degrees Celsius during the daytime. And I have to admit, as much as I don't like the way we measure things in the United States, I'm not so good with my Celsius conversion. So 40 Celsius is about 104 Fahrenheit. Okay. So pretty warm. During the daytime on Sunday, dozens of bushfires are already burning in New South Wales with hotter weather predicted on Tuesday. That's part of what we get hit with in California too. When that really hot weather hits, so come the fires, which is not good, right? Because they spread so well. Fire does well in heat. It doesn't do well when it's cool. Also humidity, stuff like that. So the hotter it is, the more likely you're going to see that kind of stuff. So California gets it, right? The heat is bad enough, and then come the fires and the smoke and stuff like that. The states of Victoria and South Australia are also reported soaring heat over the weekend. Yeah, or tell me about it. Melted into my bed that night. Yeah. So something we should be aware of, and probably as a planet, we might want to start taking care of this kind of stuff in a meaningful way, that currently isn't being done right now. You think people are more tolerant with fascism today or in 2010? So it's interesting you mentioned that. I don't know. I've only really been active in politics for a shorter period now, where I would say I kind of went out of, I've been in a progression of following this stuff more and more. It seems like there was a big change under when Trump took over. I mean, I'll admit, and this shows some of my ignorance, but I also think it shows a change. the level of racism that got to come out of the shadows under the Trump administration was shocking. I didn't think we had that level of racism left in the country. Of course, we still had racism, but I think it was being pushed into the shadows. You knew not to talk about certain things in public. You knew not to say things because it wasn't going to go well. And it seems like we've reverted on that. Like, you'll hear people say things where you're kind of taken aback. Like, you just said that, like, out in public where people will hear you and judge you. You're saying that. And it seems like there is people are being emboldened to get more into this nationalism, get more into the racism, get more into this kind of stuff that seems to be growing. And I think it was Sam Cedar was talking today. He was talking about how there's some writer, I think he's going to maybe have on the show or something, that was saying, back in like 2010, this writer was saying that he's done some statistical work that potentially 25% of people in the U.S. would be willing to support a sort of a authoritarian type system, right? So I think that's something we need to be aware of. We're kind of going more in that direction. Yeah, it's a great question, Catboy. Fahrenheit is the only freedom unit based in reality. Fahrenheit is saltwater freezes at is that what it is? Is the saltwater freezing at 0? And then I guess if you have a certain percentage of saltwater, right? They taught us in school it was something to do with like the temperature at which like a cow's breath forms mist or something like that. Some kind of weird thing that didn't make any sense. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, the rest of our units make no sense. Like the foot, which supposedly traditionally was based on a person's foot. I mean, that's great for eyeballing stuff if you want to mark out feet really quick. But yeah, that's why so I'll just make a claim here. Even in the United States, when people are doing like real science, they generally use the metric system. Like scientists get it. Oh, all the science classes I took and that kind of stuff, you actually use the metric system, which is good. Yeah, but the rest of our units make no sense at all. Miles and all that, it's just ridiculous, right? In my hometown last summer was more than 50 degrees Celsius. Yeah, I hate the heat. Where I grew up in Northern California, there's this little pocket, right, where it gets really hot. I mean, the whole Central Valley in California gets brutally hot, but I mean, I remember it regularly getting to be 108, 110 growing up, like usually 108. Like if you get above 108, that was kind of abnormal, but I hated it. I don't know how people tolerate it on a regular basis, and it's worse now. You hit more of those above 100-degree days. Now they have these records where you'll go above 100 degrees for like weeks at a time. It drives me nuts. I can't handle it. Right. Oh, hey, do. Welcome. Glad to have you in here and join in the conversation. Is it cooler? Is it the cooler? It is the lower the oxygen at the surface. Is it the cooler? It is the lower the oxygen at the surface. I don't know if the oxygen makes a difference, does it? But it could be. That could play a part of it too, like if the fires are consuming oxygen. I'm not 100% sure how that works. Hungary and Poland, yeah. The biggest fascist groups are also in Czechia, Sweden, and Greece. Really? Yeah. I never used those units in my life. The American military uses metric too. Yeah, it's like the things where it really matters. And I guess this was before my time, but I think it was in the 70s. There was a big push to go to metric, and people just couldn't wrap their brains around it. They were like, what? Like what? Which is funny because a yard, everyone here knows what a yard is because of football. Or we have a fairly global audience a lot of times in this chat. So American football. We use yards, so people kind of intrinsically know what a yard is, but a yard isn't that different than a meter. So it's like if you understand conceptually a yard, you should kind of be able to wrap your brain around a meter. But in this country, we just gave up. Nope, can't do it. That's for scientists to understand what a meter is, and we couldn't go with it. Yeah. Couldn't do it. But yeah, I totally get that the military uses metric because they need to know what they're actually doing and be able to do the conversions. Oh, okay, a kilometer compared to a meter, you can do that in your head. Makes sense. Yeah, we'll take a look at that one. I'll take a look when I can. That one's got some stuff, and I just got to make sure I vet it before we put it on screen. So make sure it's terms of service and stuff. Oh, great conversation getting started off here. Pennsylvania Supreme Court throws out Republicans' bid to reject 2.5 million mail-in ballots. That's right. That, to me, that's the story. The title here is the story that they were trying to get 2.5 million ballots thrown out. Like, in what way can you in any way claim you respect democracy if you're trying to get 2.5 million mail-in ballots thrown out? Because it's not like you're saying, oh, we found 1,000 fraudulent ballots here. If you're throwing out 2.5 million, you're just saying, let's throw out all the ballots. So basically, and we're going to see a couple stories in this. There's a number of lawsuits coming out that are just, I don't think it's even about winning anymore. It's about the story. Right, is really what it's about. And as we've seen, like in our chats, we saw this a little bit last time in chat here, people pop up and all they've done is heard the headline and they say, well, what about this? What about this? What about that? And they haven't even really read what's going on, because most of the times, if you actually dig down and read into these lawsuits, usually the judge is scolding Giuliani and the people who have brought these suits about. The judge, he or she, is scolding these individuals for basically the lawsuits being ridiculous, right? Frivolous, without any kind of merit. But it doesn't matter because it makes the headline, and that's all they care about. And then people come into my chat and say, yeah, but what about all the lawsuits for fraudulent voting, which makes it seem like there's lots of fraudulent voting going on. I don't know about Golden Dawn. I'm going to have to look into that and read up on that a little bit. I'll have to become knowledgeable about that. So here we go. As a remedy, Kelly and other Republican plaintiffs had sought to either throw out 2.5 million mail-in ballots submitted under the law, most of them by Democrats, or to wipe out the election results and direct the state's Republican-controlled legislature to pick Pennsylvania's presidential electors. So we've talked about this all along. We've been calling this out on this channel for a while. They wanted to either say, okay, take out this 2.5 million ballots. We know most of this group is Democrat. Either throw out these 2.5 million ballots or just wipe out the whole election and let the state legislature, which happens to be conservative, decide how those votes should be cast, right? Nothing about that is okay. Remember, they keep talking about democracy. They want a judge to throw out 2.5 million votes and or let the legislature decide who becomes president, right? In what way can you say that's the people's will being carried out? The request for the state's lawmakers to pick Pennsylvania's presidential electors also flies in the face of nearly century-old state law. So the Constitution does say the states get to decide how they're doing these things, which grants the power to pick electors to the state's popular vote. So they've had it enshrined in Pennsylvania for a century, roughly a century, that this is how we do it. This is how we pick people. So you're not really supposed to go back on that. Free, fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges of unfairness are serious, but calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here, Judge Stephanopoulos Bibas wrote on the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. So again, this is another case where the judge is literally calling out the lawyers and saying, you're just making accusations, but your proof, your support is lacking, right? There's not much to this. The judge denounced as breathtaking a Republican request to reverse certification of the vote, adding voters, not lawyers, choose the president. Ballots, not briefs, decide elections. The campaign's claims have no merit. So there's nothing to them, but it makes stories, right? I saw the other day the judge literally laughing at Giuliani's face. Yeah, he told Giuliani if he knew all he was saying was fake and those affidavits were smoke, Giuliani said yes. The judge just crack up laughing. Yeah. I mean, it's a situation where like I think more and more, especially by the end of today's stream, we'll see. This is really more about news and riling up a base than it is about real. I mean, I think they're hoping that something will come through here, but most lawyers looking at all of these different cases, because there's been, over 40 of them, there's nothing really there that is of, legally, from a legal standpoint, there's nothing really there to them. To be honest, I'm okay with throwing out the election results and doing it over with new candidates. Oh, new candidates would be good. Hey, JD Smith, good to see you. Glad you're in here and joining us. New candidates would be awesome, right? Because I can't imagine that we would find worse candidates than the ones we just went with, right? We looked at 4 years ago. We thought that was about as bad as it can get. And somehow we ended up with this this time around. All right, coronavirus world map, tracking the spread of the outbreak. This is kind of interesting. So they update this page pretty regularly. It's an NPR page, I guess, but it has some interesting interactivity as far as being able to see the map. So you've got, let's see, is we going to be able to see this? We don't have I'll move it over so we can see Australia in a second. But we got, so this is what, new cases. So the circle in the country represents the size of the whatever it is that we're recording. So at the moment I have it on new cases, but then what really matters is new cases per 100,000, right? That's when we can actually start comparing places, and it kind of becomes a big mess over here in Europe. I think we could, can we zoom in? I don't see a zoom in, zoom out, but we can see cases per 100,000, not too many circles bigger than the US here. There's a couple. Maybe a couple that are currently doing worse than us. But it's, by all accounts, we just spent the... We'll get, I'll go over in a second. We'll check out Australia in just a second. By all accounts, we just had Thanksgiving in this country. I don't know necessarily how the rest of the world, I guess some places do a Thanksgiving, some don't. It's kind of an American holiday, right? Hey, Clydeson, welcome in. Glad you're in here. But by all accounts, if you look at the busyness of our airports, the busyness on our major freeways, people just did their holiday Thanksgivings as if the coronavirus didn't exist, if we weren't having a pandemic. And that usually amounts to people coming together. So you have 4 or 5 different households coming together and feasting. Sometimes we go visit family in Northern California. We didn't this year because we're really not doing much outside of going to the grocery store that involves interacting with other humans. But lots of people came together, and they're saying about 2 weeks from now, we're going to see an explosion just in time for everyone to get infected and then get together again for Christmas. Another explosion leading us into January. So it could be bad. Let's see. Australia deserves some props here. So look at Australia. Doing great, right? They're doing good. Some of these places you kind of wonder, right? When you look at, like, say, China, you kind of wonder if they're doing as well as they are. They might be, but you don't ever quite know. But yeah, Australia's doing good. Europe looks like it's got some problem spots. United States, definitely a problem spot. So hopefully people make good choices from here on out. Oh, just Trump throwing out, rigged election. Not even an explanation, right? As if weeks and weeks later, this is going to land and really make a lot of sense, just declaring that it's rigged. But if that's all you look at, I guess it's true. Chat room with social distancing from us, right. Yeah, here we go. To be honest, 8 don't like using Australia as a good coronavirus example. Our numbers are good, but our handling has been poor, in my opinion. Yeah, probably. It's just the rest of the world right now is like not doing anything. I mean, it seems to me like this holiday season in the United States, people just did whatever they felt like doing because they're like, well, it's Thanksgiving. I know there's a virus, but it's Thanksgiving. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Detroit mayor, if you make a commitment to the masks, we don't have to shut the economy down. Seems like this would be worth it for people who want to make money, right? People who want to go to their jobs, people who want to do stuff. Wearing a mask seems like a good way to do that. And we heard months ago, director of the CDC saying, until we get a virus, the biggest thing you can do right now is just wear a mask. It's like a major part of things if everyone just wore a mask. I don't get why Trump didn't just get on board with that and say, okay, we're going to keep things open, but you're all wearing masks everywhere, right? And it still would have been better than what we're doing now, by all accounts. Where was oh, yeah, so there's an interview of him saying it here.
Well, the numbers you're showing are the area. The city of Detroit is the illustration of what Dr. Birx just said. She's been to my office. We spent time at this, but Detroit actually has the lowest infection rate in the state of Michigan. We're half of that of the surrounding suburbs. And it's because behavior changed. In March and April, Michigan was hammered along with New York, and we had within a few weeks 1,000 people hospitalized and 50 of our neighbors dying every day. Today, we've got about 200 hospitalized, and we're losing 1 or 2 people a day to COVID. It's still too high, but the commitment to the testing, the commitment to the masks has shown that you can dramatically drop the infection rate.
When you say behavior changed, you have a mask mandate. What's changed?
Well, in March and April, we didn't know. Certainly, people in Detroit took to heart the data that showed if an African American gets COVID, you've got a 2 to 3 times more likely chance to die than a Caucasian. In Detroit, assembly lines are in our DNA. We set up the biggest and most efficient drive-through testing site in the Midwest at the fairgrounds. We were testing 1,000 or 1,200 people a day. And all summer and into the fall, if you drove around the city, Detroiters were wearing masks. It was not necessarily true in the surrounding communities. And the governor has made this point repeatedly. But literally in Detroit, we have an infection rate less than half that of the surrounding suburbs. If you make the commitment to the masks, we don't have to shut the economy of this country down.
Yeah, and he's making some great points there. I mean, yeah, so Detroit is one of those cities where, you know, people are on assembly lines, people are in close proximities, and they may have been able to do some things to help people out, but, you know, it's a dangerous situation. And he's saying the masks made a huge, huge difference. Once we got everyone wearing those masks, seems like that would have been a much better approach to take in all of this. You know, the economy is going to take a hit no matter what, but obviously we want to minimize that. Yeah, I like your idea, JD. I wish there was a way where we could Truman show Trump and let him live in a set of White Houses and just keep letting him think he's the president. Yeah, kind of some like, what's the show called? Black Mirror? It's like some kind of Black Mirror thing. I think they even had a Christmas special like that, right? Where you're in some kind of reality. You don't realize you're in like a simulation. That'd be great. Just stick him in a simulation and you can just program everyone that interacts with him to say, oh, yes, Trump, you're so right. Everything you say is perfect. And he would be happy and the rest of us would be happy. That's an outstanding idea, JD. There was an economic study backing mask mandates economically and biologically. Yeah, I believe it, right? Because, I mean, remember when we first all started wearing masks and they would show those videos where it was like you could see I think it was like heat mapped or whatever, like infrared. So you could see they'd have people cough or sneeze without a mask and that stuff just goes everywhere. And then they have them do it with a mask on and it just goes a little bit and then kind of falls. It's, yeah, pretty... it just makes sense, right? It just totally makes sense that the masks are a good idea. I think it's a win-win for all. America gets a new leader. Trump thinks he's still president. And if this is televised like the Truman Show, Trump will get crazy ratings. A win for all. Yeah, I think there's some merit to that idea, JD. That's one of the great ideas I've heard today, maybe. Okay, here we go. We're not through with it. Trump considering kicking off 2024 run during Biden's inauguration. So it's not just enough that he's going to run. He literally wants to stick it to Biden for announcing this during the inauguration. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I always think Trump can't surprise me. In fact, I think we have at least 2 stories today where Trump he's caught me off guard, where he's done a thing where I go, you know, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see you doing that. President Trump is reportedly considering kicking off his 2024 president-elect campaign during President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration, the Daily Beast reported. 3 people familiar with the conversations told the news outlet that the president has been discussing the specifics of a campaign launch with close advisors and confidants. 2 sources said that Trump has floated the idea of a 2024 related event during Biden's inauguration week, possibly on Inauguration Day, if his legal efforts to overturn the 2020 election fail. So this isn't like one source saying this. This is numerous people have come forward and said, oh yeah, that's what he's planning. That's what he's going to do. So that'll be something, right? It's just sort of interesting to watch how all this goes down. Clayton, to be fair, if you wiggle those ratings in front of him, he might just do it on his own volition. Yeah, whatever it takes to get his what he wants. Here we go. Where are we? Yeah, one poll from 7-Letter Insight found that 66% of Republican voters would support the president running in 2024. So two out of 3 Republicans want him to run again. A separate Morning Consult political poll found that 54% would vote for the president in a 2024 primary. So he's got support, right? He's got support going there. Hey, Green Bay 30, welcome to the chat. Glad you joined us. Glad you're in here. Trump this year has repeatedly refused to concede the election, and he and his allies have continued to make baseless accusations of voter fraud to explain his 2020 election loss. During a press conference on Thursday with reporters, the president continued to claim that widespread voter fraud. So he's still doing it. We just saw a tweet from him right the other day. So that'll be weird. I mean, I love the timing that it's always, you got to stick it to the other person. Whatever you can do to steal someone else from getting, their moment. I'm going to announce my 2024 kickoff during Biden's inauguration. Great. Trump or Biden, you don't have to answer me, but I'm a huge Trump fan. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm definitely not a huge Trump fan. I wouldn't call myself a Biden fan either, but I voted for the lesser of two evils, right? I went with the thing that was going to destroy our country slower, hopefully buying time for people to get fed up and change their minds. There's a changing of minds in this country, but it takes even when people agree with you that something's a good idea, it takes a while for them to kind of get comfortable with it and feel safe enough. And I think we need some time for some of these ideas, like Bernie Sanders type ideas, to really get stronger, even though, actually 2/3 of Americans support Medicare for all. Apparently, we're going to have to see like 80% support before the government even begins to do something about it. Right. Let's check this out. What do we got? Where was I? Were we here? No, we were right there. Oops, where am I? Here we go, Forbes. Yeah, statewide mask mandates are better for economy than local ones, study finds. Oops, I'm off center now. Yeah, that makes sense. Statewide mask mandates are better for economy than local ones. That makes sense because you're going to have more people following along with it, right? You're going to have less interacting. Actually, this intermixing is a thing in a different way that we saw about Trump rallies. There was some news coming out this week about the effectiveness of Trump's rallies that he had for the rallies for his campaign that he was having, and how they might not have helped as much as he thought, because people are coming in from all over the state. So it was probably spreading the virus more and actually not as effective for his campaign as he would have hoped. But who knows? Bernie had some great ideas. Yeah, see, so there we have, that's right. That's the thing that is like, even someone who's a strong Trump supporter can say, yeah, Bernie had some great ideas, right? That's the kind of popularity those ideas are getting, and yet we can't get that taken care of. We have in this country what is, more and more sort of experts around the world are starting to downgrade our level of democracy in the United States. More are recognizing that what we have is a flawed democracy. That is, the will of the people is not carried out, right? So you got people in both parties supporting ideas that belong to Bernie Sanders, and yet we can't get someone like Bernie Sanders into office or into the president, and we can't get those ideas passed. People still treat them like they're not there. It's just a bit long to fix up. Yeah. People are willing to go shopping in a mask mandated area. Yeah, like I'm still not going to go shopping too much for things. I mean, a couple times I've had to go to Home Depot to, do some things around the house. But I'm not going places where they don't have masks on the other day. Right. I'm not going to do that. I feel much safer when there's masks going on. Okay. I try to be a fairly mature individual. I try to be a grown-up maybe, but sometimes you just can't help it. So here's Donald Trump with what I think may be the soundbite that we hear for years coming out of his presidency. We're going to hear lots of quotes and clips, but this one I think might be with us for a while.
And what happened, if you watched the election, I was called by the biggest people saying, congratulations, political people. Congratulations, sir. You just won the election. It was 10 o'clock, and you looked at the numbers, and I'm sure you felt that way. This election was over, and then they did dumps. They call them dumps, big, massive dumps in Michigan and Pennsylvania and all over. If you take a look, and what happened.
All right. So again, trying to be a grown-up here. I don't know what it's like worldwide, but here in this country, that's sort of. He sounds like he's been crying. Yeah, some people have been calling him out that he sounded very weak during that interview. There was a couple times where he sounded like he was out of breath, like he was trying to catch his breath while he was talking, which sometimes just happens if you get a little off track in an interview or something like that. But this clip right here went viral because, you know, when people talk about massive dumps, it's usually kind of like childish, potty humor or stuff like that, but it's still kind of amazing to me. Hey, GOP Pastique, welcome. He always sounded like a weak buffoon. Yeah, he did, right? Maybe he just had his McDonald's. I don't understand how his body is still running. I don't get it. When he's eating the fast food, I can't even eat fast food. I'm infinitely healthier than Trump, and I don't claim to be a pinnacle of health, right? I gotta work on my health a little bit right now, but I just ran 2 miles an hour ago on the treadmill, right? What was the last time Trump ran 2 miles? If I ate the way I see Trump doing, I would be sick. I would feel absolutely horrible and sick. And yet he just can do it, and it like doesn't affect him. He just keeps running, and not running physically, but like his body just keeps running and moving him along. And I get that he's rich, so he gets good health care and stuff, but like usually part of being rich means you eat well. Like I don't understand how he's still functioning when he eats the way that he does. But yeah, his body is running on fumes. Yeah, we'll see. Did you watch that video of people trying his diet? Oh my God, no. And there was a shortage of fumes. Yeah, Super Size Me. So I remember that. I'm old enough to remember the Super Size Me movie, and that was painful to watch. And that's back when I did eat fast food, right? I could eat it from time to time, but now it's like I can't even go to those places. I just feel nauseous if I even consider eating that kind of stuff. He can have this stupid diet because he got better medicine. Yeah, I guess, but either way, like I don't think I could. My body would just feel wrecked. Now, there's a video where 2 people trying his diet during a day. Yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't go well at all, right? It's still mind-boggling that anyone thought a narcissist like Trump would be a great leader. It is. It absolutely is. And people, you're absolutely right, JD. I totally agree with you because I remember talking to people, but as Trump won the election before he took over, and I was telling people, look, this is an individual. He doesn't know how to not commit crimes. Like he doesn't even get what to do that. And I'm not saying that I knew everything that was coming with Russia and stuff like that. I'm not trying to say I had it all figured out, but it was clear this man's going to commit crimes. And then after 4 years, people still supported him. It's unbelievable to me that people still thought he would be a great leader after 4 years. He is 70, so he looks good, but that is all makeup, and I would be surprised if he can survive the Queen of England. Yeah, so have you seen that picture they had of him where it was like, here's what Trump would look like without his makeup and the hair and everything, and it really was a different look. So you start to go, oh, that's why he does the hair. Even if the hair looks ridiculous at times, you get why he's doing it, and that like without his makeup, he's super pale. So it's like, it's not like he looks good now, but yeah, it's actually a huge improvement. Oh, some people from BuzzFeed were the ones that were doing his diet. His diet is already a crime against good taste. Yeah, I think so. It just blows my mind. Like if I had that kind of money, the food that I would be choosing to eat is very, very different than the food that Trump's choosing to eat. But I guess that's different. He doesn't know how not to commit crimes. Yeah, I think that's true. I think he literally like doesn't get it. And I remember listening to one of his biographer interviews where the person said that Trump's dad, because Trump's dad was a horrible person, right? The family has a history of like not renting to black people and all, and making money off. Trump's dad was one of these pioneers of making money, but also
and you
making.
say, I take no responsibility.
I take full responsibility.
It's not my fault. It's China's fault. It's China's fault.
Yeah, here we go. A man who can't take responsibility for any of his stuff. But the biographer was, and Trump's dad was one of the first people who really started working the system where you make money off your business, but part of that is to get the government to also give you money, right? They did that in a lot of real estate transactions. And the biographer was saying that Trump's dad essentially was trying to raise people that were almost like sociopaths, like no kind of remorse, no kind of sense of fairness or doing things. It's just about the scoreboard. How much money did you make on the deal? That's all that matters. And essentially he got that in Trump, right? And that's how he was raised. And so it's actually in a lot of ways not surprising that we ended up here. Most middle class people will have a better diet than him. Yep, even in the United States, most people will eat better than him. Yeah. Common use Super Bowl winners here is McDonald's burgers and Wednesdays. If you had done that in France, all athletes would split on the president so hard. Oh, if we had, you had like them go head to head, he educated his kids like his salesman. Yeah, like it was all about like just about making profit. And what do you do from there? I didn't get it from his niece's book. What I was just talking about, I think it might have been an NPR interview, and I don't remember if it was on Terry Gross's show. This would have been years ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. What is the name of her show? I just don't ever listen to NPR anymore, so I kind of forget. But I think it might have been Terry Gross's show. Collectivized child rearing to prevent future Trumps. Yeah. Yep. Spartan regime for all 1% families. Lol. Yeah. Got to hop off working. Okay. We'll see you later, JD. Glad you stopped in and we're part of the conversation. Have a good day. All right. Oh, and I did, just for the sake of it, I did make a clip too out of the Trump one.
Dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps. In Michigan and Pennsylvania and all over.
Yeah. So again, most of the time I'm a grown up, but once in a while I get I get to be immature too. So here's the situation. So this is a theme, not necessarily this article, because I wasn't able to find the article, but this is a theme we're starting to see more and more, and I think it really ties into this whole conversation that we have on this channel about capitalism, right? The capitalist's whole goal, the capitalists have done a good job. I don't understand how people believe this. It's 40 years of them telling us it works this way, but it's the other way around, where they tell us if you give money to the rich people, it's going to trickle down to the rest of us. Well, in 40 years, where's the trickling down? All it's doing is going up to the top. It's like trickle up is what's happening. It's all going up. And if you're going to be a successful capitalist, you have to take advantage of every opportunity. And that is what we're seeing. We are now seeing this narrative come out that people working from home are somehow stealing from their employers. They are stealing from their companies. We did a story on here the other day where, was it Deutsche Bank or was it, I can't remember. It was some financial organization which was saying that their whole thing was anyone who works at home needs to take a 5% cut, because the argument in that article was, well, you don't have to spend money on gas. You don't have to spend money on a nice car. You don't have to commute. So really, you don't need 5% of your money. Just give it back to your employer, that's illogical. Your employer doesn't pay you based on your personal, well, in some cases they might, but in general, like I'm in a union. It's just a contract. Like, you've worked here this many years. Here's your pay. They don't care, man, woman, any of that. What race you are. Just you've worked here this many years. Here's your pay. The pay doesn't change. Yeah, it might have been Deutsche Bank. The pay doesn't change based on, did you spend gas to get here to work? We'll give you a little extra money, right? When you need to buy a new car so you can get to work, does your boss give you a raise? No. So it doesn't work the other way around either. Oh, now you don't need a car. We're going to pay you less. No, you're already paying people too little. So this is a thing I think we're going to have to keep our eyes on coming up, because, of course, if companies think they can get away with this, they will, right? And I think this is right. No, employers are stealing our labor for sub-survival wages already. Yeah, That's right. And Facebook started doing this. Facebook announced, yep, if you work from home, we're going to pay you based on where you live. So if you live in San Francisco, you get paid one thing. If you move out to the middle of Nebraska, we're going to cut your pay, right? I don't know about that. Well, I do know about it. It's this idea that they're going to start finding new ways to cut wages, as if they haven't cut wages enough, right, in recent times. There's a reason they say it takes a village. Yeah, kids are insufferable, as if you wouldn't want to help raising them. Deutsche Bank I think that was what it was. Like the company doesn't save money in rent, electricity, heating, coffee, salaries for. Yeah, exactly. So what we're going to see, and this I think is going to be a shock to the economy a bit, we're going to stop seeing companies have to lease giant buildings for all their workers to come into. I mean, some people are going to need to come in, but if only, say, a third of workers go back, that means they don't have to lease as many buildings out there, right? So now all these buildings, unfortunately, they're going to sit empty for a while, but it saves the company money as well. Everybody makes money, right? It works out everywhere. Lol, boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I shit on company time, right? That's right. Catboy, they are paying a plus to people for using their houses to work from in Europe. Oh, that's not bad. That's a good idea. Because the truth is, most people are also paying for things so that they can work from home, right? We did some crazy spending on computers in our house, partly because I was becoming a streamer, but also like so we could do our jobs from home. We needed to upgrade computers in the home. One kid on computers to go to school, 2 people on computers to do their job. We needed computers. My job's not going to reimburse me for any of that, right? So yeah, that's actually good that they're doing that in Europe. Europe seems so much more advanced in so many ways than our system, where we think it's okay for the capitalists to just be cutthroat, literally take everything they can from you. So I hide office supplies inside of an event. That's funny. I haven't heard that version before. I have to pay a ton for heating electricity now. They can so that's true, right? Because I was actually wondering about that, like if my heating and air conditioning are going to go up, because I never used to. We don't have home air conditioning, but we have like the window units, and we never used to have to run those. Well, we'd run them, but not as much. Now they're running on some days like all day. In fact, I had to run the thing today. It was hot today. I don't know. Weird. Oh, we didn't listen to this one yet.
In our proof, they say you don't have standing. I said I'd like to file to the lawyers. I would like to file one nice, big, beautiful lawsuit talking about this and many other things with tremendous proof in our proof.
So his phrasing is just, it's like someone in the 3rd grade said, okay, Trump, it's really good to use adjectives. And so he learned like 5 adjectives, and he uses them in like every sentence he ever uses, right? Nice, big, beautiful lawsuit, tremendous proof. He started off by saying, the lawyers tell me we don't have standing. That means you don't have a case. That means that nothing legally is relevant for your case. There's no way that you can go forward with things. And he's saying, oh, no, I hear what you're saying. We don't have standing. But let's do one big, beautiful lawsuit with tremendous proof. It's like he doesn't get what they're saying to him, right? Where am I living? I'm in Southern California, so Northern Hemisphere, but the weather here gets a little weird. In fact, sometimes November is actually our hottest month, which is odd. The weather can be cold in the winter, but we have winters where it's just weird. It can be anything in Southern California. I've spent like Christmas Eve on the beach before, where it's like a summer day on the beach in December. It's weird. I'm a Southern Hemisphere. Each day I wear less clothes. I'll be working in a mankini suit. Yeah. All right. What do we got here? Burks, we are deeply worried about what could happen post-Thanksgiving. Yeah, because they were predicting it and trying to warn people what was going to happen. And she's saying, we're entering this post-Thanksgiving drive with 3, 4, 10 times as much disease across the country. That's what worries us. So you already have a ton of virus, and then everyone's coming together and eating together and hanging out at the same table. It's not going to go well, right? It isn't. So we've spent the last 9 months really developing sophisticated databases that are bringing together information from across the country down to the county level, Burke said. I think the one thing we will bring to the Biden administration in that discussion is how they want to see the data, because data isn't helpful if it isn't actionable. So she's saying, let's, they're hopeful that we're actually going to have a president who is concerned about the science of things, right? So, I'm not a proponent of Biden's views and his political views that he's going to bring forward, but I do think he's probably going to at least listen to the scientists and let them give some. He'll listen to their recommendations a bit. I'm not saying he's going to handle the virus perfectly. We'll have to see, and it's already such a mess. There's kind of not that much to do between now and then the rollout of the vaccine. Obviously, you want to listen to scientists about how to roll out that vaccine in the most effective way, but it's kind of already been a bit of a bloodbath, so we'll have to see how that goes. Yeah. All right. Health experts warn that coronavirus case numbers...
Experts warn that coronavirus numbers could be...
Is that as loud on your end? Health experts warn that coronavirus case numbers could be misleading after Thanksgiving. So what they're worried about is that what's going to happen is the numbers we see in the next week will actually be lower than usual. So everyone can come out and say, hey, Chris, you said the numbers were going to explode after Thanksgiving. The numbers have actually gone down. What do you think about that, right? And all the other people who predicted a raise in the number of coronavirus cases. Well, what happens, you can see this on a small scale. There's less testing that happens over the weekend. So on Monday, when the numbers come in, it looks like there was a dip over the weekend, but it was just less testing. So then as the week continues, the numbers go up, and then you hit the weekend, they go down again. Well, Thanksgiving weekend is going to be an extended version of that, where we had 4 days with very little testing. So all of a sudden, it's going to look like the numbers came down, but then in the long run, we're going to come back up to it. But if you're not looking closely, you just look at the first numbers that are going to come out this week and go, everyone was making a big deal out of this. It was no big deal. And then they're going to make their Christmas plans thinking that Thanksgiving wasn't a problem. And then middle of December, we're going to see some very disappointing numbers about the virus and what's going on. So that's what they're putting forth here, but that the health experts are warning, be careful with the numbers now. The numbers you want to look at are the ones that are going to happen like in the second and third weeks of December. The problem is by then, everyone's already made their Christmas plans to get together with family again, and then they're not going to want to break them, right? We're going to see a whole full airports and freeways and everything again. It's like we got a couple of people. Ghost is Anonymous and Junior 1SP, welcome to the chat. Nice to have you in here. Same for Thanksgiving. No one was getting tested because they were doing Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what the article is about, is people weren't getting, for the last 4 days, no one was getting tested. How do you think Trump defeat will affect other totalitarian deniers like Bolsonaro? I don't know. If you're asking me, I'm not sure. I almost don't know if we can call Trump defeated. I mean, it appears like he's not, like he's out for this cycle, but it appears like he might be ready to fight 4 years from now. And he might be president again, right? It's my feeling, because I think this idea that's going around that mainstream Democrats are not going to gain any support in the next 2 and 4 years, I think has merit to it. So I think in 2 years from now, I think we're going to see the House go the wrong direction, right? I think we're going to see pickups by the Republicans in the House. And I think 4 years from now, people are going to go, well, we tried Biden and nothing really changed, right? Unless Biden surprises me, but it doesn't appear like he's going to with the picks he's making. And people are going to say, well, what was the point of that? And people aren't going to be excited to come out to vote, but the MAGA people might be real pumped, and we might get Trump again in 2024. I don't think it's a ridiculous thought to think that he'll be president again. So we might he's down, but he might not be out, is unfortunately what I'm a little bit concerned about. Are you from the U.S.? Are in the politics because Brazil is very upset. Oh, Brazil is upset about Trump. About Trump? Is that what you mean? They're upset about that? Corrupt politicians, as always, if they get rich and the poor get but poor. Yeah, so I unfortunately what just happened here with the Biden win is I think a large portion of our population who don't really understand politics think everything's fine now. Oh, good. We got a Democrat in there. Trump's not in there, so everything's just fine. And I think we're setting ourselves up for failure 4 years from now. But we are starting to see some cracks that some people are getting it. So we'll see, right? Yeah, right. At least in Brazil, there is no such thing as racism of color, but racism of poor and rich. So it's like class, like a class structure. Yeah, we have both here in this country, unfortunately. I thought we were making big gains in the racism part, but then it became apparently became okay to be racist again, is what a lot of people seem to think. So yeah, unfortunately, we have both. A centrist is any follower of democracy. Trump and Biden are far left. I'm not 100% sure what you mean there. We are all the same. People need to understand the power is in our hands when we wake up there. Yes, we are going to put these corrupts in their place. Brazil, the corrupted judges, political politicians, still difficult, but with this lying media. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, good comment, Junior. There's racisms of color, too. People bleach their skin. Racism of the poor and rich, classism. Yeah, like a caste system. Yeah, I mean, I've heard... this was so long ago, but I heard some intellectual, I can't even remember who, but was making a comparison between class in the United States and the caste system of India. And obviously there are different systems, but he was saying that most people would be very surprised at the level of mobility in the United States and how closely it matches a caste system type system, that most people would be in shock. Because I know people in this country that think, oh, what are you talking about? If you just work hard, you can achieve anything. If you work hard enough, you'll become a billionaire, right? It's all just about working hard. And so a lot of people just don't get it. And you show them the statistics and say, look, there's very few people who actually move from the system they were born into a different system. And people, that's just because they're not working hard enough. And it's hard to convince people. If Obama didn't get rid of racism, how did Trump bring it back? I'm not saying it was fixed, but I think it became. I think the people who had racism in their hearts at least knew to keep it in the shadows. I think under Trump, it very much became acceptable by many people to now have it out in the open, and I think that's bad because I think it leads people who maybe never would have been exposed to that racism to start to think it's okay. Oh, well, Grandpa's saying these things. Dad's saying these things. These other, friends I have are saying these things. Maybe there's some merit to it, and then it starts to become a bit of a problem. Plus, the new thing that's the problem is a lot of these groups are targeting young teens on, say, YouTube. YouTube is and Facebook, but YouTube is supposed to be pretty bad because you're watching 13-year-olds watching one video. All of a sudden, it suggests one video to them. They watch it. Then it suggests some right-wing video. And then once you watch that, everything it suggests is like right-wing nationalist type stuff. And they just end up going down that pipeline. So I think screen time is a problem that's part of it as well. Right. And Trump made it okay. Trump's dog whistling said, hey, this is fine. This is okay. And so people took it from that. Castes are like the buy to win of racism. Social mobility is a lie, but the untouchable Indian caste is forbidden from upward social mobility. Right. Trump made it okay to be white. Adriana Tuhart, welcome in here. Lol, that is not. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not even sure what Trump made it. Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I would disagree with that. Well, yeah. So I was kind of Taco. I was kind of going short with it. Like screen time, you spend enough time in front of screen time, especially young people, you end up getting exposed to this. But right, it's the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not actually too familiar with PewDiePie, but yeah, it's the algorithms, right? Feeding them that next video, which is going to be that next video that's just going to be a little further down the pipeline. The algorithms are absolutely that. I voted Trump in 2016 and I did not vote this year. Yeah, I know a lot of people were conflicted about how to vote this year, and Biden's not the kind of candidate that is really going to inspire a lot of people for change and stuff like that. Yeah, I get that. Are you still thinking coup is possible? I think we're to the point where we're pretty safe about this. I think the moment for the state legislatures to act would have been a couple weeks ago. And the judges don't seem to be buying any of this kind of stuff. So I don't really see it moving forward at this point, because I think most people understand that Biden won the presidency. Now, unfortunately, there does seem to be a lot of people on the right that are okay with authoritarianism. So some of them would be fine with an actual literal coup. But I think we're probably out of the problems now, right, with that. Like I suspect we're going to move forward in a way that is appropriate for Biden to become the president. I don't think a coup was ever possible. It's performative to tie up the runoff in January. So part of that is I don't think Trump even really cares about what's going on in Georgia. But it depends what you call a coup, right? Like, 'cause a lot of times what I think of as a coup is, what people are, murdering people and taking over their spot in the government. I don't think that was going to happen, but I do think that there could have been some court challenges to the way that the electoral votes were awarded. And I think the Republicans are going to be studying this, what happened just now that we're going through right now. They're going to study this for the next 4 years, and they'll be a little smarter about it 4 years from now. Obama caused whites to feel racist when they voted for him. Why would you feel racist for voting for Obama? Also, might as well vote Trump so you are not felt to be shamed. Yeah, I definitely disagree with that, Adriana Tahart. Like, that's, I definitely disagree with that. I don't like Biden at all, but Trump failed miserably on the virus from China. Yep, that is true. That is true. Yes, authoritarianism doesn't affect me because I don't protest and live in the suburbs. I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic there. I mean, if authoritarianism takes over, then we all have to deal with it, right? Obama caused a lot of bigotry through identity politics. I don't know that Obama caused it. There was a period of time where we went through identity politics, but I think that's part of what our country has to do, where we have to take an honest look at the way race is dealt with in our country. Thanks for the follow. We have to take an honest look at the way that race is dealt with in our country, and we have to sort of be open-minded about the fact that it's a broader issue than many of us understood it to be previously. Like, I've learned a lot in 2020 about things. We have to be open to ideas here. About COVID are dying of other diseases, but the media posing as COVID. Yeah, so that's an argument I don't like either. Like, if you happen to have another disease, but you die of COVID, like, the COVID probably made it worse, right? You might have something else that you would have survived from, but then having the COVID makes it significantly worse. So the fact that, like, well, this person got COVID, but they also had asthma or whatever, right? Diabetes or something. Like, it's entirely possible that like, having a complication increases that likelihood of dying. So it's still attributable. It's still fair to attribute it to COVID, right? Yeah, Obama did war crimes, and we aren't libs or Dems here. That's right. We are critical of all unjust power structures. Yeah, I know people coming in probably don't know. So yeah, it's good Taco pointed that out. Yeah, we're not Democrats. Most of the people in here are not Democrats. And again, I voted for Biden not because I liked him, but because he wasn't Trump. Is essentially the thing. You think American people will eventually protest and strike normally, like in Europe? I think there's a growing movement in this country where people really liked what Bernie Sanders had to say. And I think that those ideas are growing, right? We've now seen a generation which has seen 2 devastating economic impacts in the span of 12 years. So that's hard to ignore, right? It's hard to just keep blindly following capitalism when you realize, well, wait, what about 08? And people can make excuses and say, well, that was a special situation. What about 2020? Well, that's a special situation. Okay, but there are major impacts to our society that keep failing us. And it stems from the fact that capitalism is a system that it's not really supportive of society. It's supportive of about a few hundred families in the United States, and the rest of the people have to scramble and suffer and die. And I think that movement is going to grow and have more of an impact on things. So I think you're going to start to see that. And what I'm hoping we see is like the movement for a People's Party picking up steam and putting more progressives into local offices, and people start to seeing what kind of change can come about. So I could see there being eventually larger protests and strikes for people who want to stand up for stuff. Yeah, let's see. What do we got? It's okay to disagree with what democracy is. It's messy. That's like saying AIDS isn't a problem because it doesn't directly kill many people. Yeah, right. The people, right, exactly. So people who die from AIDS are oftentimes dying from another thing, pneumonia or something like that. But your body has been severely weakened by AIDS, but it's the pneumonia that you succumb to, right? So in order to say, oh, well, the AIDS numbers are smaller because those people are really dying of pneumonia, it's not really the full picture. Yeah, that's a good point, Clydeson. So many leftists are hard to talk to. They block most people because they are too sensitive. It depends. I mean, let's see. Was it you start? There's a couple people in here that are kind of walking a fine line, but I try to let people have a real conversation, and sometimes people can come to the whole point is you want people to broaden their minds, right? But there is a line at which some people are kind of walking that fine line where you'll get silenced or banned or whatever. What if you view people through them being an individual and character rather than that those that view life through race are very unhappy because they either feel like a victim? Yeah, I definitely don't. I wouldn't agree with that. I think that that's a narrative that gets told, but I think when you actually talk to people, you realize that there are some pretty legitimate complaints people have about the way our country works and how it supports certain people. So again, it's kind of being open and hearing human beings tell the story and being open to that story, not necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to listen to what you say and try to figure out where you're wrong, just listening to what people's lives are like and go, yeah, that sucks. I mean, I've had periods of my life that were very brutally struggling to get by. So, I mean, I sort of have an empathy for people when they can talk about how parts of their lives were difficult, because I know there were periods of my life where I look at society and go, this could have been different. We could have done things very differently here. And it's not because I'm a victim. I mean, I think I've accomplished things that in my life that were good, but I can look at them, I have a PhD in math. I have a good job. I've accomplished some things, and I didn't really come from a high level class. But I also can look at it and say, the brutality that I had to work through to get to where I am shouldn't have been that way. So, you listen to people's stories and you hear what they have to say. And a lot of times it'll show you things about society that you didn't realize because, you didn't live that. Like, I have a lived experience that other people can live from, but I don't know what it's like to grow up black in this country because I've never lived it. I can hear someone's story about it, but I've never personally lived that. And so, hearing other people's discussions can be hugely helpful in that kind of way. Let's see, where are we? Hot take: pride isn't about nationality. Yeah. Catboy, you can't be proud for being born one piece of land. You didn't do nothing for it. Yeah, okay. If you're proud of the sky being blue. Yeah, here we go. All right, let's hit a news story. Okay, this is amazing. This is a person surfing. It's a person surfing. Right? Absolutely astonishing moment. Sebastian Stutner broke the world record surfing a wave 115 feet tall. That's amazing. Look at that. I don't know if you fall, what happens? What happens if you fall when you're surfing a wave like that? Right? I don't know. That's a little scary to me. When I first moved to Southern California, I tried surfing for a bit. And I got to say, I don't know. The ocean is unforgiving, right? When you got waves coming in. And I surfed for a bit. Like I was, not great at it, but I like do it a little bit. But like you start getting hit with waves, right? Yeah. And then you go under and then you come up just in time to get hit with the next wave. And then you get up, hit with the next. I mean, it's the ocean will kill you if it has the opportunity to. Something like this, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine that. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Movement for a People's Party. Definitely something that I'm kind of excited about. So here they say, few things are clear. The fact that this is close is a damning statement on the Democratic Party. Yes, that's how we need to look at it, right? It's the fact that it shouldn't have been this close. If you have the choice between Trump and anybody, it shouldn't even be a close election. The fact that it is telling you what the Democratic Party has to offer. And once this has worn off about Trump, let's face it, Biden's in office because he's not Trump. So once people think, oh, the Trump problem has passed, then what does the Democratic Party have to offer you? And if you don't actually offer somebody something, they're not going to vote for you next time, right? So whether it is Trump or whether it's possible Trump could get primaried as well. And then people go, oh, well, here we have someone who isn't Trump, so they're okay. Who knows? And number two, the Democratic Party has made itself the party of the status quo and allowed the Republican Party to sell itself as the anti-establishment party of change. Yeah. I mean, how are you going to argue with that? Oh, they got a number three. I didn't even see this before. The Democrats rigged their primary to give us the least electable candidate. Again, they would rather lose with corporate candidates than win with progressives. That seems to be the case. 2 years in a row. And 4, whoever wins will have no mandate and we will replace them both. So, yeah, they make some good points there. I used to water ski. Water feels like cement at high speed. Yeah, water is punishing. And the ocean does not care about you. It just doesn't. Cats hate water, even soft. Yeah. The parties do not offer me enough ideological differences. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I would, yeah, that's right. I mean, they're both corporate. They're both taking money from places. I mean, I guess from a social standpoint, I would say our parties offer a little bit of difference. But even then, it's not like the Democrats are really offering something in this country that is going to change people's lives. And that's the argument we keep hearing. If you don't offer people change in their lives, right? Material conditions. If we don't see that in the next 4 years, the Democrats are going to lose. And again, we need those 2 races in Georgia. We need that to go well. It's sad being in a country where you don't have a real left. Yeah, which is funny. See, that's one thing I love is that, I hate the fact that it exists, but it's interesting to have it point out when people from other countries come in here into the chat and they say, well, yeah, your Democrats are basically like more in line with Europe's right wing, right? They line up pretty nicely with the right wing in a lot of these other countries. Not like the far right wing in these other countries, but in Europe, Joe Biden would not be considered on the left, right? Trump races to weaken environmental and worker protections and implement other last-minute policies before January 20th. So basically, they're trying to burn the place down on the way out, is what we're looking at. The Trump administration is rushing to approve dozens of 11th-hour policy changes. Among them, the Justice Department is fast-tracking a rule that could reintroduce firing squads. This is not parody. I'll read it again. The Justice Department is fast-tracking a rule that could reintroduce firing squads and electrocutions to federal executions. So that's where we're going with things. It appears that basically the Republican strategy is to burn the government down on the way out, and then 4 years from now they'll say, what did the Democrats do? Look, they didn't help you. They didn't change anything. And I get it. I just made the case that Biden's not going to make much changes anyways, because he's, corporate coming in, very corporate individual. But at the same time, the Republicans are going to make it even harder. Basically, it's going to be stalemate for 4 years. McConnell would love nothing more than to just stalemate Biden for 4 years. The power that McConnell would feel doing that? That's what we're looking at. 6 days after President Trump lost his bid for re-election, the U.S. Department of Agriculture notified food safety groups that it was proposing a regulatory change to speed up chicken factory processing lines, a change that would allow companies to sell more birds. An earlier USDA effort had broken down on concerns that it could lead to more worker injuries and make it harder to stop germs like salmonella. So in the interest of selling more birds faster, we are going to increase worker injuries and make it harder to stop salmonella. That's not, I don't want to make that trade. I'm not interested in that. I don't want more. These places are already nuts. If you look into it, these meat processing plants, they're not good. The worker injuries that people get, right? And it's like, They literally have lists that okay, if you lose a thumb, you get $2,500. If you lose a hand, you get, it's all figured out because this stuff happens so regularly in these places, and we're about to make it worse. Ordinarily, a change like this would take about 2 years to go through the cumbersome legal process for making new federal regulations. But the timing has alarmed food and worker safety advocates who suspect Trump administration wants to rush through this rule in its waning days. Yep. And that's the food one, right? That's not even the weird one. Even as Trump and his allies officially refuse to concede the November 3rd election, the White House and federal agencies are hurrying to finish dozens of regulatory changes before Joe Biden is inaugurated on January 20th. The rules range from long simmering administration priorities to last-minute scrambles and affect everything from creature comforts like shower heads. Trump has a thing about shower heads and washing machines and stuff. He gets really worked up about it. To life or death issues like federal executions and international refugees. They impact everyone from the most powerful, such as oil drillers, drug makers, and tech startups, to the most vulnerable, such as families on food stamps, transgender people in homeless shelters, migrant workers, and endangered species. So major stuff. These aren't little things where he's going to do a couple things on the way out. It's major stuff, right, that we're dealing with here. Let's see. And easier to pollute, harder to immigrate. One proposal has raced through the process with little notice but unusual speed and deadly consequences. This rule could reintroduce firing squads and electrocutions for federal executions, giving the government more options for administering capital punishment as drugs used in lethal injections become available. So it's become harder. It's become harder for, I don't know if everyone knows about this, but in recent years, the drugs that are used in executions where they just give you a shot and then you kind of die, these drugs are getting harder to get even for states to get their hands on. So apparently the big brain idea here is, let's do that firing squad thing again. I mean, it just blows my mind. That's what we want to go back to. That's what we want people seeing about what happens in the United States is you literally line people up and have a firing squad. This is what's being pushed. Other less dramatic sounding rules could prove harder to unravel and have broader consequences. In particular, the Environmental Protection Agency is on the cusp of finalizing several rules that would make it harder to justify pollution restrictions or lock in suit levels for at least 5 years. So just open the gates on pollution. That should be fine, right? Some rules read like Trump's speeches translated into policy legalese. The Department of Energy is racing to loosen efficiency standards for shower heads and laundry machines, evoking Trump's reoccurring bits about bathroom water pressure. He's always bringing this up about water pressure and stuff. Notably, the trade group representing washer manufacturers actually opposed the administration's proposal, saying it's unnecessary because many machines already have short cycle options. So the manufacturers don't even support this. The proposed rule is supported by small government advocates such as Competitive Enterprise Institute. Water and electric companies warn it could lead to higher consumption and waste. The Energy Department didn't respond. This is not a good idea. Other rules are more clearly accommodating powerful business interests. A rule completed on November 13th would restrict pension managers from considering social and environmental impacts when choosing investments. So if you run a pension, you can't take environmental or ethical, social considerations into how you fund your pensions for people. Right. Another Labor Department rule would make it easier for companies like Uber to withhold benefits by classifying workers as independent contractors instead of full employees. The thing we just unfortunately did in California because the messaging campaign basically by Uber was making it look like they were for the people and confused people into voting for this. I'm convinced that if people knew what that was in California, there's no way that would have passed. Is that all of it? I think that's the main points for the article. So, again, they're trying to burn down the house on the way out. All right, let me get caught up on a few things here. We got anything we want to mention here? Let's see. Prior to chemical washing, McDonald's reconstituted chicken is deemed unfit for human consumption. Yeah, where was it? I read it. I think it was in Michael Pollan's book. The Omnivore's Dilemma. I think he talked about it in there, where the meat, like in the chicken and a lot of the meat that people eat, sometimes you can tell when you buy a product and you kind of look at it and go, is that meat? But they have this weird thing that they create. It's not like chunks of meat. It's like they take the leftovers and make I think they call it pink slime or something. Let's see. If you Google that, I'll do it over here. If we do pink slime. Yeah, pink slime in McDonald's burgers. Yeah. So they create this thing that's supposed to like look like meat, but it's not. It's like all the parts of the meat that you wouldn't even necessarily want to eat. So it's called pink slime. But yeah, that book was very interesting as far as how all these companies work. Oh yeah, there you said it. Look at that, pink slime. We're on the same page, Catboy. There you go. Thanks for helping out there. Yep, lol. USA, the land of the depression. It's worse than Fallout. Hey, Death Priest, I think the entire global problem is caused by how currency works. Currency is an issue. That's a big topic. But yeah, the way, money, everything kind of traces back to money, right? What is one of the biggest reasons that people get divorced? A lot of that traces back to money. Why is there a group of people in our countries that are living in a substandard way? Because of money. So a lot of things come back to money, and currency depends on exactly what you mean by currency, which, by the way, I think the next book for book club, tomorrow on book club, Peyton and I are finishing up the Two-Party Doom Loop, and I believe it's not official yet. We haven't totally decided, but I think our next book is going to be on modern monetary theory. I think we're going to dig into that a little bit. So if anyone's interested in currency and money and stuff like that, currency is a little different, I guess, technically, but that whole kind of idea. Yes, critical race theory is awesome. It needs to be taught to everyone. Do you believe critical race theory should be out of the schools? I would say that it is certainly in the country that I live in. I think a lot of people do not understand race in this country, right? So I think I think there are a lot of topics that we don't teach in schools because people are afraid, parents are going to get mad, and it leads to us not doing things that we should be teaching in schools. And I think it's fair to teach the way, to take an honest look at the way race is treated in our country. I think should be addressed in schools. I do think that would be a good way to go. Did you see actually, I think that's probably the book. We haven't finalized it yet, but I think we are going to look at that book. So it's good. I bought the hardcover, and then that PDF that you posted was great because then I'll be able to I can show one on screen and then also read it and stuff. Right. Okay, let's take a look here. All right. In a 5-4 ruling, Supreme Court sides with religious groups in a dispute over COVID-19 restrictions. In a 5-4 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court sided with religious organizations in a dispute over COVID-19 restrictions put in place by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, limiting the number of people attending religious services. The case is the latest pitting religious groups against the city and state officials seeking to stop the spread of COVID-19, and it highlights the impact of Justice Amy Coney Barrett on the court. The decision comes as a coronavirus cases surge across the country. So part of the argument here that was had, like I think it was, I'm drawing a blank on his name, the one who got in with all the controversy, the Supreme Court justice, the one who was drinking all the beer in college. I'm so bad with names. Even when I was young, I wasn't good with names, and now I'm definitely like can't remember names as much. Not Gorsuch, the other one. Anyways, we know who I'm talking about. But he basically was like, well, if people can go to the grocery store or if people can go to a bike shop, what's the difference? Why is it different than going to church? Well, when you go to church, you're generally sitting. Yeah, Kavanaugh. Thanks, JD. Oh, you're back, JD. Thanks. Thanks for helping me out there. Yeah, Kavanaugh, his argument was, well, if you can go to these other places, why can't you go to church? Well, in a church, you're generally quite a few people in there sitting and breathing the whole time. When you go to, say, a bike store, you might have one person in there at a time. Or you could easily say one person in the store at a time. You can social distance. You can't really do that as far as in a church, right? How you going to social distance? And I kind of got to ask, why don't they have church services remotely, right? What's the main big thing that is the difference between having, a church service via Zoom versus going there? And it seems to me like, I think we can probably guess what the big difference is. The thing is, we have to remember that the freedoms in this country are not without limit. There are limits to freedom, and most of them come down to safety. When your freedom impinges on other people's safety, that's when it stops. Like freedom of speech, right? The whole case we all learn in school. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater because it will lead to people getting hurt. So, yeah, this idea that freedom of religion is with that's kind of what's growing in this country, this idea that freedom of religion is without bounds. No, if you want to practice your religion, you can do that. That doesn't mean that you can get together in big groups. It doesn't mean that you can endanger other people by spreading the disease around, which is going to in turn affect more people. Yeah, exactly. The bike salesman never put the wine in your mouth and stuff. Yeah, there's a sense of community. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem with just don't attend their gathering is that you're still spreading it to the people around the community, right? It's a big deal to me whether my community is 5% infected or 20% infected. And to think that it's your choice whether to infect the community because you want to go in there. Right, but it's not my choice whether my community is 5% infected or 20%. You're getting to decide that for me, which means when I do go to the grocery store, I'm at a larger risk because of you, which I think is unreasonable in my opinion. I grew up Catholic. I have not been in an Orthodox community. I grew up Catholic. Their community is different than yours. Again, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're in my city, if you're spreading it around my city, like again, it comes down to safety. You're welcome to do whatever you want with religion as long as it doesn't affect other people. But the facts are right now, you're affecting the rest of society. COVID going to spread regardless. Herd immunity will happen whether we want it to or not until vaccine. None of this is ever going to hit herd immunity. Herd immunity is a fantasy. Even Sweden has just come out and said, yeah, our approach sucked. We're going to abandon it because it doesn't make any sense. So the idea that you're just going to give it to your community is not well founded, right? And no one's going to hit herd immunity. Sweden was trying to get to herd immunity and they weren't able to do it. Plus the fact that people can apparently get infected multiple times. So it's weird that this idea of herd immunity is still going around when it's basically been proven that it doesn't happen. It happened to quasi herd immunity in New York City. Thanks, Cuomo. No, they don't have herd immunity in New York, not even a quasi herd immunity. They're having all sorts of issues there. So that's just not true. All right. How are we? Let's skip this one. Yeah, it's still out there. I mean, that's a weird argument. Anyways, let's move on, right? Okay, let's see what Maria Bartiromo has to say. Or Trump, really, what he has to say.
I watched you with Kelly. Look at the election. Look at the election you have coming up right now. You're using the same garbage machinery, Dominion, and she's going around Abrams. She's going around screaming that she's got 800 or 850,000 ballots. What kind of an election is this? She's going around collecting votes. What kind of an election is this? What kind of a country are we living in now where you can vote for months ahead of schedule?
So it's weird. They're working to get people ballots so they can vote. That's a little different than collecting ballots. You're helping people register to vote. And I'm all for get everyone registered to vote, right? So they're making it sound like she's doing something nefarious by helping people register to vote is a little bit ridiculous. But that's not even the point here. The point here is that what Trump is doing is part of what hurt him. Was it Pennsylvania or was it Michigan? I can't remember. But they came out after looking at the numbers and said, basically, Trump, you hurt yourself by convincing people not to vote by saying that the voting was all fraudulent. So that's what's kind of happening here is that if Trump keeps convincing people that all of the voting is rigged, then he's convincing people not to vote. It's not worth their time to come out and vote. He's working against his own best interest, right? Even though he's also saying, oh, no, come out, look at things. So it's weird. He's working against himself, and people are starting to call this out. Anarcho Taco brings up a good point. There's been a few people in the chat here that are kind of walking that fine line, and we may have to pull the trigger on some stuff. So it was funny because protests are okay with COVID, according to MSM. Well, first of all, the protests are a little different. People are outside. They're wearing masks. They're generally social distancing. And there seems to be a world of difference between being outside and being inside. So not the same way. If religious services were happening outside in an open area, I would be a little more understanding of that. But that doesn't seem to be what's taking place, right? That would be a little bit of a different argument. Seems to be a totally different level of infection versus outside versus inside. Which one was this one? Let's find out.
Not to be believed, crack at it. What's going on in this country is not to be believed. I could say some very strong words where this country's gone over the last 10 or 15 years, but it's not to be believed. And we were changing it. If I got in or get in, we will very quickly have deals with Iran. But now they're going to give the ship away. They'll pay crack at it.
All right. Does this strike anyone else as odd? What he just said? If I got in or get in, we will very quickly have deals with Iran. What's the problem here? What's the problem in logic here? Right? Does anyone want to take a shot at it? The problem here is that Trump has been president for 4 years. So why is it different now? In fact, it would seem by all accounts that Trump inflamed the issue with Iran. Right? This issue was inflamed by Iran, even where Europe wanted to stick with the plan. Iran wanted to stick with the plan. Everything was going fine. Trump kind of set fire to the whole thing, but now he's saying, "Oh, we'll quickly have deals if you reelect me. If I get in there, we're going to figure this whole Iran thing out." even though it was kind of a dumpster fire for a while, and we reached a point where many people around the world were very concerned what this was going to turn into with Iran. Suddenly, Trump's got it all figured out. It's all going to work now, right? Hey, Dr. Vibe, welcome to the welcome in. Welcome. So that's kind of silliness from Trump. Millions of full-time U.S. workers receive federal health care and food assistance. I have to remember what this one was about. This is kind of the overall idea of one of the ways capitalism's letting us down. So actually a good time to bring up the capitalism comment there. Millions of Americans who are working full-time jobs still rely on federal health care and food assistance programs because of low wages, a bipartisan congressional watchdog says. A report from the Government Accountability Office found that about 70% of adult workers participating in Medicaid it found them participating in Medicaid, which provides health care to low-income Americans, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps, are working full-time. Most worked for private sector employers in places like restaurants, department stores, and grocery stores, according to the report. The report was requested by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who said its findings show an urgent need to raise the federal minimum wage well above $7.25 rate, where it's been. So the issue here is that, everyone always says, go work harder. Go work harder. If you're working 40 hours a week full time in this country, you shouldn't have to rely on the federal government to help you, right? That's what we should have in this country. And people say, well, work harder. Well, there's lots of people out here working full time. And what it says is many of them are still getting federal assistance. Some people are working 2 or 3 jobs to get to that. Oh, thanks, Dr. Vibe, for the follow. Welcome in. Hope you enjoy things. So this is the issue with capitalism, right? If you're a good capitalist, if you're good at being a capitalist, you want to pay your workers as little as possible. And we've now made it possible where you can pay your workers so little that they have to get on government assistance. Okay? And here's the problem is you have companies that are literally like here. Let's just read it. At a time when huge corporations like Walmart and McDonald's are making billions in profits and giving their CEOs tens of millions of dollars a year, they're relying on corporate welfare from the federal government by paying their workers starvation wages, Sanders said in a statement. This is morally obscene. And it is, right? I don't know how many people I've heard say, oh, well, I'm against welfare. I'm against government assistance. I'm against all of this. Okay, well then make sure that companies pay their workers properly, right? We're not talking here about people who don't work, right? There's always this idea, you hear the fantasy situation of someone who just sits at home and does nothing and waits for the welfare check to show up in the mail. These people are working, and they're working at companies like Walmart and McDonald's, and they're being paid wages. So basically, if you say that you don't support government assistance like welfare and these other programs, you should not be shopping at Walmart. You should not be buying food at McDonald's or any of these other places, because the reality is every dollar you spend at Walmart is a vote for welfare and government assistance. You are paying. You're paying a small price for your cheese and your waffles or whatever is so important that you get from Walmart. You're paying a really low price, but then your taxes are higher because those workers' wages are being subsidized by the government. Okay, so, it's a hypocrisy that I see happen over and over again. People talk about, well, I don't like government assistance. I don't want my money going to that. And then they go shop at Walmart. Walmart literally brings people in to train their employees to sign up for welfare, because then Walmart doesn't have to pay those people very much money. We need a system where, like, if you're going to tell people, go work harder, go get a job, fine. But then companies need to pay those people enough that they don't need to be on welfare in the first place. You at least have to be consistent inside of this system, right? Someone who's working 40 hours a week should not be on government assistance. And I agree. I don't like the idea of government assistance as well. I think workers should just be paid properly, right? Maybe like certain situations. If people have disabilities where they can't work and stuff like that, that's different. But I'm talking about a normal person who works 40 hours a week shouldn't need to be getting government assistance, they should be paid properly by their work. If that, like in the system that we're in right now, that's how it should work. If we're going to say that this capitalist system is what we're going with, then the company should have to pay enough. Let's see. I missed a few things, and then we'll go through. So let's get caught up here. There is no welfare in socialist government because everyone because everyone is on welfare. But everyone would be working, right? Or everyone who's capable of working would be working in you know, and let's remember, socialists, there's lots of different flavors of socialists, but in most of those situations, everyone would be working, so everyone would be getting paid. There's welfare for decades in Europe, and people is working and well. How do you explain that? I have no problem with welfare. In a needs-based economy, there's no need for welfare, right? America being a socialist society, I do. I don't know about the U.S., but in Canada, you make more than minimum at Walmart starting. Yeah, so there are places, and we'll actually show that. There are countries where a McDonald's worker gets paid a proper amount of money, right? And then you don't have to rely on the government to step in and make up that wage. It's a weird system, right? If you're saying capitalism is the thing you want to go with, then, you know, one of the minimums should be if you work full time, you should get enough to sort of live on. Yeah. You are paying too much for Walmart anyways because they gave you bad products for the Walmart owners to thrive. Yeah. And a lot of times the deals, when Walmart comes in, they're able to make deals with localities, so they don't even pay the proper taxes that, say, a Target does. Right? You would think, okay, here's a Target, here's a Walmart. Don't they basically have the same tax situations? No, because Walmart knows how to come in and negotiate to pay less taxes. That's another way they keep it down. They're not even paying back to the cities, oftentimes, their fair share that they're supposed to be paying anyways, right? So not only are they paying less taxes, your taxes are still supporting their workers' pay, all so that the Waltons could get super rich, right? Right. Again, there's welfare for decades in Europe and people is working and well, how do you explain that? Clydeson, do you think socialism is when the, right? Yeah. I'll let the chat kind of handle that one. There's no reason to reach your best ability if everyone gets the same. Yeah, well, okay, so here's a question, Adriana. What about just intrinsically being the best person you can? Like, I always hear this argument that, well, if everyone's getting the same, why would you work hard? So tomorrow, if you go to your work and you know that your money is, say, guaranteed, are you just going to do a crappy job? Are you just going to go in and like, whatever, I'm going to do a terrible job today. I don't care about anything. I think that's a fantasy that people are instantly just going to stop doing a good job if you don't, like, make them brutally scrape for everything that they have, right? I don't buy that. Hong Kong, a capitalist country, ensure that everybody works by helping them to get a job. And when there is no job, the Hong Kong state creates public jobs like cleaning parks or building security. USA is not even able to do that. Yeah, that's a great, I love that idea. And let's face it, like, that's going to help the economy, right? If everyone is employed, then all of those people can stay in their homes, which means more stability for society. It means they're going to be able to go and buy groceries, which keeps that money flowing, which is what you need if you're going to have at least if you're going to have some level of capitalism in your society, right? I'm all for that. Like, there are things we need done, and there are people who want jobs. So why would the government not step in and put those together? Why do we need a billionaire to christen the idea and say, I give my approval? Why can't the government say, hey, we need a park cleaned up over here. You need a job. Why don't we put you together? And then everyone benefits. We get clean parks. We get people who, and that's just an example, but there's stuff we could do, right? Wow, chat's really flowing right now. This is great. Most people don't even do a good job anyways. Some people are not as good as others, but this idea that instantly, like, everyone's motivation to do good work in life, I think most people take pride in the work that they do, right? People at the end of the day want to feel valuable, like they contributed, like they were part of something and they did good work, right? So I don't buy that. Well, I don't think I said everyone gets the same. I'm not saying everyone should get exactly the same. I'm not saying, I'm just saying here, people should get a bare minimum to have the dignity and the basics to be able to live their life, raise a family, live in a secure situation, go to the doctor, have some kind of retirement after 50 years of whatever years of working hard. A basic bottom level is the beginning. I'm not saying we stop there, but that's what this article is about that I'm reading here is there's a basic minimum level which we should not be letting people fall beneath. And to me, if you work 40 hours a week and you still have to go to the government for help, unless you're in a special situation, something's wrong with the balance that we have struck there. It is helping the economy because those people will spend the whole salary anyways. Yeah, exactly. The most effective money to hand out is to the people with the least because they have no choice but to spend it. What we've seen when you give money to rich people and companies, they do stock buybacks. That doesn't really help the economy. They do stuff for themselves. When you give the money to people, they buy food, which helps the grocery stores, and that money flows through the system. They pay rent, which, then we get into the whole thing about landlords, which is a whole topic that I could probably set us off in chat again. But yeah, that does keep the economy going. Chris, sorry, I'm sure you've gone through this in detail, but when it comes to wage working, are you still in favor of, let's say, a shift leader or manager making more hourly? Depends on the situation. I mean, when you talk about like a shift leader at, say, a grocery store, sometimes all that person is doing isn't really that much necessarily, like more than other people. I don't believe in this hierarchy where the people at the top are making billions and the people at the bottom have to be on public assistance. I think it's kind of like a compressor in audio. At the very least, we need to smash everything closer together, right? As far as I'm on the left side of things, but as far as the details, I'm open to discussions about how we handle a lot of those details that are in there. But I certainly think the bottom should be raised and the top should be lowered so that it's, like I say, like a compressor where you're smashing everything closer. And then if we ever get to that point, then we can talk details about should a manager make more, should a shift leader make more? Because manager can mean different things in different places, right? So it kind of depends. But I don't necessarily, like most of the managers I've dealt with, I don't know that they deserve more. I mean, I don't even, that's a great question, JD. And it's definitely a discussion that would have to have because it's affected by a lot of the other decisions that are made, right? What are the other material conditions? Do we live in a society where everyone has health care? Do we live in a society where everyone can go to college? If we live in those kinds of societies, then people already have a lot of their needs met, right? So it affects that question, but it's an excellent question, JD. Eliminate billionaires. Yeah. Let's see. It is not an example for a system that I want to see thrive, though. Lol. Hey, Despond. Welcome to the chat, Despond. Good to see you in there. Yeah, good back and forth with people. Without billionaires, we don't have companies. Without companies, you don't have jobs. That's not how it has to work. Hey, Despond. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Oh, I should put that window on top of the chat so we can see it. I should change that. I'll make a note of that. I didn't realize that was behind chat. Move. Alert over chat. That chat is new. I just have had that in there a couple days. You're familiar with universal basic outcome. Tacos are popular. Yeah. So we're just gonna, so let's not, we'll keep that hidden. We don't really need billionaires. The idea that somehow the Jeff Bezos should have $200 billion and his workers should be struggling to eat. I don't buy into that, which, could be part of this article too. On top that, those public jobs in Hong Kong set the bar for the minimum wage, which forces companies like McDonald's to give at least a better salary because of people rather keep streets clean than spend. Yeah, so I think Bernie Sanders talked about that, where you could create a system where the taxes were based on the multiplier of the top and bottom as far as pay workers in a company, right? So in the 70s, what was it? A CEO made about 200 times what the average worker made. Now it's something like 2,000 times what the average worker makes. And I'm all for, the higher that multiplier is between the top and the bottom should affect the way that company is taxed. Absolutely, because that incentivizes raising the bottom and lowering the top. Right. I don't know if that's exactly what you were getting at, but it's an idea that's been thrown around. Shouldn't it be more like work equals make more money? Right. But the article that we're looking at is about people working 40 hours a week who are still on public assistance. Right. In my opinion, if you're working 40 hours a week, you should earn enough money to not be on public assistance. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there's different approaches here. Is this guy a believer in labor theory of value law? Clydeson, I said UBO, not UBI. Yeah, you guys are having some interesting conversation here for sure. With company using more and more machines, companies need less and less people. Therefore, we don't create new jobs. We will end up with a dead end as a society where inequality will be so high that revolution becomes inevitable. Yeah, I mean, if you look at an automobile factory now versus built today versus an automobile factory from 50 years ago, the number of people employed in those factories is vast. I mean, it's just mind-bogglingly different. So yeah, and which means you're going to have more and more people without. So there needs to be something going on. The light bulb existed for over 20 years before Edison's team worked on it. Capitalism is revisionary. Yeah. During the last French election, our candidates wanted to set the higher salary in a company to 20 times the smallest one. Seems reasonable to me, right? Why do you need to make more than 20 times the person at the bottom? So the shareholders will be appeased? Yeah. Hey, have you seen what happened today with the new law in France? Yeah, and I have some stories on that. I'm not an expert on as I'll be the first to admit, I'm weaker on foreign news, but sometimes we'll talk about it, and we have good conversation going today. So yeah, we'll see about looking at that. But what's going on in France is definitely very interesting. And Macron kind of said they're going to rewrite it. Now, some people are very skeptical, and we might have people here in chat who can who will know more about this than me. But Macron said they're going to rewrite that bill. So we'll go over it quickly here. So basically, there's a bill where they were trying to infringe on people's rights, right? So one of the things they were saying was you're not supposed to photograph or record police. And then a video came out of the police doing very, very bad things to an individual, and then they blamed him. And then the news came out saying, a video came out. Well, they blamed the individual, but then there ended up being video camera footage of it, which showed that it was not what anyone could justify. So that kind of sparked some anger, I think, where people are pretty upset about it. Yeah, we'll get to that story in a little bit. So the short story is Macron said they're going to rewrite the bill because basically they set what was the building they set on fire? Some kind of bank or something, right? They set some serious kind of building on fire. They said they'll rewrite it, but some people are skeptical about what's really going to happen. None of these CEOs, including Bezos, are being paid out $200 billion in cash, though. The value comes from stock prices that anyone can obtain. He just has a lot of them at Amazon because it was his company that he started. Well, the problem is that's right. He's not getting a check for $200 billion, but that's his compensation. So it's compensation one way or another, and it's compensation that could be used to go to the workers that are getting paid the least. So one way or another, you could help the people at the bottom, and I don't think it needs to go to Bezos, right? So I know a lot of people say, well, liquid versus not liquid, but I still think companies can find a way to use that money to take care of the people who are making the least. Yeah, $45,000 fine and that. Yeah, journalists did a good job on that time because they feel threatened. Yeah. All right, let's finish this one up. It definitely sparked some... I guess we were almost done with it. Among the 15 agencies... Oh, ketchup and mustard 2 paws. Here we go. We got everybody very generous today. So thanks. Thank you, ketchup and mustard 2 paws. We got a few more people in here today. So... Yeah. So, ketchup and mustard 2 paws. Do you wanna tell us about yourself or anything or? So the reality is, I know ketchup and mustard 2 paws. It's that's Mrs. Political Perspective. So that's my wife, ketchup and mustard 2 paws. Who is an amazing woman, right? She's great. She wanted to know how she could, the sub fairy. She was liking the emotes, and she wanted to know, how can I help unlock the emotes? What is it going to take to unlock the emotes? How can I be helpful? So, I kind of explained how it works on Twitch, and she wanted to be supportive. So she, is gifting subs to kind of get me up to that point where we unlock all the emotes. So thank you very much, ketchup and mustard 2 paws. As always, very much appreciated, and always welcome in the chat, and very nice of you to come in here and give subs to people. So, and we got some of our newer people getting some names I don't even recognize in there getting subs. So that's great. Thank you very much for being helpful there. And we're having some interesting discussion, ketchup and mustard. I don't know how long you've been watching ketchup and mustard, but we were talking about Walmart and paying their employees a living wage and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks. All right, so and feel free to hang out, ketchup and mustard, and join the conversation. All right, so our story here: Walmart and McDonald's topped the list. Among the 15 agencies overseeing the Medicaid and food stamp programs, Walmart was among the top 4 employers with beneficiaries in each of the 15 programs. McDonald's was among the top 5 employers whose workers received federal benefits from 13 of the 15 state agencies. Other companies that frequently were discount retailers: Dollar Tree and Dollar General. I don't know if we have quite a global community here. We have stores in this country where everything costs $1. Dollar Tree and Dollar General are those. You go in there, everything's $1 or like 3 for $1 or something like that. So those stores apparently can't pay their workers very well. And a couple surprises here. Sanders said an analysis of the GAO data showed that across 9 of the states reviewed, Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Maine, Massachusetts, Nebraska, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Washington, the largest number of recipients of food stamps were employed at Walmart and McDonald's. So they're a big part of the problem. Asked for comment on the GAO report, Ann Hatfield, a Walmart spokesman, said, "If not for the employment access Walmart and other companies provide, many more people would be dependent on government assistance," which makes no sense. If their employees are on government assistance, how is it that more people would be on government assistance? Anyway, so that's where we're at with that. Ketchup, lol, JD. Yep, so you guys are talking. Because they don't talk like political perspective, they just don't like what I say. No individual. I haven't been able to read every comment in there, but I don't know. I mean, there's, in a genuine conversation, you have to be able to hear other people's ideas. Everyone has to. And so I don't, because they don't talk like, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Adriana Tuhart. I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, but Dijon mustard or sesame seed mustard, though. Yeah, I think if I remember right, this is kind of your typical mustard, I think. Have you heard about the pharmaceutical selling remdesivir for caring about COVID patients while knowing it does not work? No, I did not hear about that. And it's weird. I keep seeing different stuff about that remdesivir. Some people saying it, I don't know. I keep hearing conflicting information on it, but it sounds like, it's being used to make money, preying on people. There's this dollar stores all around the world. Is there? Okay. It's so weird. It just strikes me as such an American thing because they seem so ridiculous to me. It's unfortunate that that's another virus that is spread globally, is dollar stores. In UK, they are Poundland. Okay. I mean, I guess, listen, mate, as long as you're chilling, I'm not going to rag you. I'm not sure who you're talking to, but yep. Please and thank you. Right. The real left is pro-laissez-faire and anti-state. The rest is progressive dictatorship. Long live agorism and mutualism. Yes, please and thank you. Yep, okay, here we go. Let's move on to the next story. The Gravel Institute. Okay, so just a little. So the Gravel Institute. Here's a little piece by them. It's not too long. We'll check it out. Let's see what I have to say. Whoops. Oh, here we go.
Hi, this is H. John Benjamin. I'm here to talk to you about a big problem on the internet. It's called people emailing my wife. No, it's called PragerU. Imagine a huge stream of lies that pours into every computer in America. Imagine it's disguised to look unbiased and packaged into slick videos. And imagine oil billionaires give them tens of millions each year to indoctrinate your friends, your family. Well, that's PragerU. And the thing is, it works. 1 out of every 3 Americans online has seen one of their videos, and 70% say that Prager's videos changed their minds. This stuff makes a difference, and every day it is pulling people toward the right. At the Gravel Institute, we're building something to beat them at their own game. Short, high quality, easy to understand videos presenting leftist ideas and refuting right-wing lies. Stuff you can send to your friends, your mothers, your secret lovers, your mother's lovers, your known lovers. Oh, and we've got big name presenters from Bernie Sanders to Chelsea Manning. Here are a few that we've lined up. Okay, so this won't be easy, and we're going against a Goliath, so we definitely need your help. We want this to be a collaborative organization guided by its members, where we're trying to do something big. So hey, let's do this.
So yeah, Gravel Institute. They've had some really good videos. We've played with I've played a couple of them on stream in the last few months. We've looked at that stuff. The Gravel Institute's doing some good stuff. I like what they're doing. And yeah, that was H. John Benjamin. He's from Bob's Burgers. Is actually a show my family's watching right now. We're kind of going through as a family watching the Bob's Burgers one, so that voice is definitely fresh in my mind. And yeah, he was in Archer as well, and he occasionally calls into that Sam Cedar show, and they do bits. Apparently they're friends or have worked together or something like that. But yeah, so that's part of the issue, is that there is definitely a movement online to make very convincing, slick right-wing videos that seem like they've got it together, but then when you pick them apart intellectually, you see there's actually not much to them a lot of times. They're kind of lacking sometimes. Let me see if there was anything I need to address here. A lot of conversation today. That's good. We got a good people talking a lot today. They only got rid of the 24th article, but they are upset with all the others too. Yeah, so that's one thing I heard is so back to that piece with France, is that they've taken out the most upsetting one, but people are not happy about the other articles. So they're saying, well, give us a chance to rewrite it. But a lot of people are thinking that when it comes back next time, it's not really going to be that much better. So we'll have to see. And it does not solve the use of drones, water cannon, rubber bullets, etc. Yeah. Not good, that stuff. Let's see. Nor it solves the way racist and fascism get recruited in the police, despite the fact that a policeman is supposed in France to represent the Republic. So, okay, interesting. Yeah, it's disappointing when you see people, it's Fox News, PragerU, people go in there and they're done very well. It sounds like it makes sense, right? It's kind of like, some of these people on the right, you listen to them and they sound very smart, they sound very intellectual, but when you actually break down the ideas, a lot of it kind of falls apart. Yeah. So Prager is bad. Generally, a lot of the videos, if you follow through with the videos and you listen closely, there are definitely times in those Prager videos where the things they say are just flat out wrong, or sometimes they're making a logical jump that is not reasonable, right? Oh, thanks for the follow, GJ McCain. Appreciate it. So yeah, Prager is definitely kind of more propaganda, but it's propaganda that's done so well, it looks like you're learning something, but a lot of times you're generally not. Right. Okay. So we got some people discussing some stuff. Doing business with a communist or socialist country doesn't necessarily mean you have to have that government for yourself. That's definitely not like necessary. It's real. My friend from nursery through high school, he's a anti-vaxxer now. Yeah, that's sad. It's disappointing when people sort of lose their way with stuff like that. Yeah, not good. What I walk into. Yeah, we got some interesting topics going on today. We got some discussions going on. America needs communism money more than China needs America. Maybe. We had a lot of examples of police violence in the last year, and people want to see bad policemen go to jail. Yeah. So that's kind of a global thing at the moment, right? Green New Deal is a way to implement Agenda. I'm not familiar with Agenda 21. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I'm not sure what that is. QAnon conspiracy. If you're smart, you should be able to explain complex things to everybody. Be aware of people who look too smart for you and who can't explain things simply. Yeah, I mean, some things are complex, but yeah, you have to be able to break it down and yeah, by and large, that statement is correct right there. Yeah, for sure. America can't step to China. Don't bite the hand that feeds. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if America could kind of just get our own house in order at the moment. Cuban cigars are in their own league, to be honest. Mixing Cuban tobacco with weed is a real treat. Agenda 21 is a global plan for environmental change, more or less. Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. All right. Which one's this? Oh. So here's an excuse for me to bring up the Minecraft server. We do have a Minecraft server, so if basically anything has to do with this channel, you can deal with through Discord. So we have a Discord link that you can get to. We do run a Minecraft server, so anyone who wants to hang out in the community and play, you can do that and be a part of things. This was interesting. So True Dedication, 9 years of work. This is not our... I just want to make this clear. This is not our server. This is an amazing server. Our server is great. We have some great people on it. But here they took 9 years to build Middle Earth to scale in a massive map. So you can go play in Middle Earth and you can like follow the trek, whatever you want to call it, the trek through Middle Earth of the books. You can do that in this Minecraft Middle Earth that they've created, which is kind of just amazing to me. I like to throw in some stories that are non-political just to kind of take the heat off every once in a while. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. Go through and it's a whole kind of geek out on a Middle Earth thing. And some people do. I guess you get in there, you go through the whole thing. I guess it takes hours and hours to kind of traverse the whole thing. But yeah, kind of interesting. Am I good at Minecraft? No, I'm actually not very good at Minecraft, to be honest. I played it back when no one knew who Minecraft was. Like, it was an alpha. And I remember I was teaching an engineering linear algebra class at the time, and I actually asked my class, has anyone heard of this new game called Minecraft? No one in the room had heard of it. That's how long ago. But I play it intermittently. I'll stop playing for a few years. So every time I come back, it's basically a whole new game. So no, I'm not great at it. But I kind of get in there and play around and have some fun with it. But if anyone wants to get in on that, feel free to join the Discord, and then we can get you all sorted for that, get you taken care of. Capitalism cannot step up to a country where they put all their industry into. If China decides to stop trading with USA will be in trouble. Yeah, I hate argument. If you have to be able to break things down to simple levels, sometimes just aren't able to be simplified, and if they are simplified, it becomes misinformation. There are certain things where it's very difficult to break down into simple terms, but it's also bad to appeal to authority and say, well, this person's very smart, and so I'm going to kind of go with what they're saying because they seem to have it figured out, which is what a lot of people do too. Okay, also is a terrible. And also, it's a project with a lot of leftist law. Case in point, PragerU. Okay, let's see. I played it in alpha too. Crazy what has become now. Yeah, back then there was like nothing, right? There was like, there was, I mean, it was a cool game, but there was like nothing. Now there's like animals and redstone and all that kind of stuff. It's, and even from one year to the next, you come back to it and it's like a totally different game. I guess, you know, a certain amount of stuff gets added each year. It's like a whole new thing to learn each time. It ain't a problem on how to simplify, but more like, do I have the time to dig into that topic? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, linear algebra. I haven't taught that course for a few years, but that's a fun one to teach, but or it can be. Oh, are we going to start a new World for Cliffs and Caves updates? It's possible, but what we currently did is we limited the world so that you could only explore so much, so that we're going to expand it when the update comes out next summer, so that my understanding is then when you go into those new areas, they'll generate with the new stuff in it. It'll update in the new way, so you'll still have areas where you can explore the new stuff. So I think that I think that you don't I think we'll still get that in there, but we could always, we'll decide on Discord how exactly we want to handle that. But yeah, anyone who's interested, let us know. Join Discord and we'll get you all set up with join in and everything. And if you want to go walk around Middle Earth, there's a server out there where you can do that. Oh, here we go. This should give the chat something to talk about, right? Let's see. So, you know, people, this is the comic that went out, socialist leaders, socialist citizens, and then people saying, this is just present day capitalism, which, you know, kind of is, right? It's kind of what we have now. A handful of really, really rich people, and then everyone else having a hard time with things. So I'll let the chat chew on that for a few minutes as we go on. I'm sure there's no Shapiro fans in this. I would guess. I mean, there might be a couple. There's definitely some people on the right in here today, but I would guess that in general, you're not going to find too many Shapiro fans in here. All right, here we got Andrew Yang. And let's see, we'll skip this one for time. He's basically making the case that I was talking about earlier, which is where he's saying, look, if you're going to say that the election is rigged, then it's hard to tell everyone to go vote on January 5th because you're just saying the votes are all a big cheat anyway. So why are people going to go out and vote for that kind of stuff? If a fascist supporting country was to be formed in Minecraft, would you... I don't think they have nukes in Minecraft right now, do they? Right? Interesting philosophical question, though. Okay, so what do we got here? I got to remind myself. Percentage of adults living in households not current on rent or mortgage where eviction or foreclosure in the next 2 months is either very likely or somewhat likely. Red is bad. Blue is okay. So apparently Alabama's got something going on there. There's a few states here. But look how much of this country is red or black. So that means a high percentage of people, right? This goes back to what we were just talking about in the other article where many Americans working full-time jobs do not have enough to have a basic standard of living. And that's I mean, we're seeing it right here, right? A lot of people want to say, just work harder. You're working full-time. Much harder are you going to work than full-time, right? So it's a little tricky. Yeah, good. Wow, even got some philosophical Minecraft questions going on here. Good stuff. Good stuff. So anyways, even this part of the country, the central part of the country, they're hurting, right? They're hurting, which is why the Democrats could make gains by coming in and helping people's conditions, saying, look, this is what we have to offer you. We are going to help your conditions. If the Democrats don't do anything to actually help people, why would these people in the middle that are hurting, why would they vote Democrat next time around, right? If you're not giving people something helpful. Yeah, we did have to do that the other day. You should show those. Right. What do we got? Held a message for a reason. Do you have Biden phone? He needs to know. What? Yeah. Here we go. this guy jumps. This guy is in a wheelchair, and look at what he does. I don't think we've shown this one before. That's a pretty cool flip to do. Never seen that done in a wheelchair before. Oh, it was a Red Bull challenge. If the Dems don't help the Midwest, the next election will be a Republican victory. Yep, that's right. Right? If they don't help people in the Midwest and prove to them we want to help you improve your conditions, then they're going to vote in line with how they usually vote, which tends to be Republican, right? What would be your program if you would run for president? Like me? Are you asking me? Or is that a follow-up to a chat question? If I was going to run for president, I'd probably be largely in line with what Bernie Sanders is pushing, right? Bernie Sanders AOC type thing. Some of the stuff being talked about in the Movement for a People's Party, that would be the kind of stuff I would be pushing as president. Yeah, that was a cool flip he did. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, Clydeson, right? That's the problem is the Democrats don't actually improve things for people. And so then how are you going to earn people's votes if you're not really going to help them? They've already written them off. That's probably true. MMT and liquid democracy, please. Yeah, those would be helpful. Yes, yes, political program. We want Prince, please. Infinite changes available. Yeah, so I mean, well, you kind of have like your wish list and then you have what you could actually achieve. But I would be pushing for things. First of all, I want to see unions back in this country. And I know many people are anti-union. Unions would fix a lot of the problems we just talked about with people at the bottom, right? And it would fix a lot of inequality. Generally, when you're working for a union, you're not going to have situations where one type of person is getting paid more than a different type of person, whether that's by sex or by race, any of those kinds of things. Unions help eliminate that. Unions also help make sure that people are being, they fight for you to being, now I'm a union person. I've been in unions for well over a decade. So, I'm a little bit biased, but I would there's been an attack on unions in this country for a long time, which is what's allowed pay for people to drop. I would say we get unions back in place. We make them strong so that people are part of unions. I'd like to see more worker-owned companies and larger worker representation. We talked earlier about a tax program where once you're making more than a certain multiple of a person, the lowest paid person in the company, your taxes go through the roof. We'd see them actually paying taxes. We'd want to see environmental changes, right? Actually fixing the environment, which could be tough, but we got to do it. Worker program, put people to work, fixing the things we need fixed in this country, which would also help the... Basically, if I was running for president, I would have Bernie Sanders and AOC at my side, and then maybe Cornel West and some of the people from maybe Nina Turner and stuff. That's the people I would surround myself with to give me make sure I was making really good ideas and good decisions on stuff. Is largely what I would go with is those people. So AOC, Bernie Sanders, Movement for a People's Party. Those are where I would take my leads from in a lot of ways if I was going for stuff. Let's see. Yeah, so that's kind of my answer of what I would be fighting for if we do that. I don't know if the Dems are the new elites, but they're not. They're certainly not the answer. Yeah, it's funny how Flint, Michigan just got clean drinking water again. Lol. They just finished up the pipes, right? That just happened a couple weeks ago. They got that taken care of. Central bank on fire, meh. You don't revolt without breaking some stuff as self-defense. Well, they got attention, right? They got people's attention, it would seem. Solidarity forever. Yeah, solidarity. My political platform would be non-privately owned ATMs, so I don't pay $3 to get my own money at pubs. Yeah, the ATM situation is so weird to me. And then some banks will reimburse you. It's a strange one. Yeah. And the union makes us strong. Yeah, unions. I'm a big union person. I think it's important, and they should be part of our political process, making sure that workers are taken care of, right? I mean, you know, if I could sort of jump 100 years in the future, hopefully we could get to a government where we wouldn't need unions because we would just have protections built into the laws itself. But I think the short-term fix is to make unions strong again, and that will help a large number of people in this country, right? That's why I'm pumped about the people trying to unionize Amazon in Alabama, I think it is, because that could start a ring of unions for both Amazon and Walmart around the country. I mean, I know I'm thinking big and I'm being idealistic, but that would be great. Let's see. But lobbyists help to eliminate unions. Yeah, right. That's right. They do. They do help. There's been an attack on unions on many fronts for many, many decades in this country. And if you notice, it also means the pay has gone down for workers, relative, right? Obviously adjusted for inflation and all that kind of stuff. But people have less protections now. And so most unions now are government unions. And by and large, unions can get corrupted too, right? But the unions I've been a part of, as far as I could tell, were not related to organized crime or anything like that. And they really were working hard to help workers and make sure that we're protected. And I've been in both a weak union when I was in Washington State, and I've been in a strong union, and I can tell there's a big difference in what a union can do for you when you have a strong union versus a weak union. But yeah, they can get corrupted. Unions are largely good and also evil, but police union. Yeah, we've seen some pretty vile stuff coming out of the police unions, statements they've been making this year, which are really tone deaf and stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to be too worried about police unions and making them stronger. But like, you know, your typical people that are, you know, workers, your more typical workers. Yeah, I agree. The ideal thing is to not have unions. I think the unions are a short-term benefit that we need now. It's like a triage, like a short-term, because, you know, most of us in here are leftists, but the you know, whatever flavor of leftist you are won't be achieved in the next, you know, few years. But I think we could start working for unions right now. But yeah, eventually in the long run, move to a system where the unions would not need to be there. But as the system we're in now, they kind of need to be. Yeah, Clydeson, plenty of improvements can be made, more bottom-up democratic unions with more teeth. Yeah. I'm an electrical union, but I'll swap to IWW in January. Okay. They can be corrupted if they are strong enough. It depends. Yeah, there's lots of ways to corrupt people, right? But I also think if you built it and we learn from the past and the ways that the unions were corrupt in the past, and also, you know, it's easier to shine lights on stuff a whole lot more now than it used to be. I think that we could see a strong union presence in this country without having to have that corruption come in and necessarily be a part of it. Yeah, but you would have to be careful. You have to be careful with unions as well. They are not left enough, but they are good people. Right. What's IWW? Industrial Workers of the World. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one either, actually. But yeah, if they're fighting for worker protections and making sure people are taken care of properly, then that's good. Flint just happened. Wasn't that like 4 years ago? The progressive left is why mid-states won't go Dem. Well, I mean, the Democrats are forgetting the progressives anyways, right? They're not really part of that. I'm from CNT. Confederation Nacional de Trabajo. I don't know if I still have it open. I had that Wikipedia page open the other day for the Confederation Nacional de Trabajo. So my background, I mean, my grandparents came to this country from Spain, and they literally had everything they had in a suitcase when they came here. They had essentially nothing, but they came from Spain. And I just kind of learned about that the other day, that Confederation Nacional de Trabajo. So I was reading about that on Wikipedia. Yeah, interesting. It's interesting stuff. I'm not an expert on it or anything, but it's interesting. Hoarder Alliance. So I have not played World of Warcraft in a long time. There was a period of time where my family was all playing World of Warcraft, but that was, my God, a decade ago. Over a decade ago. That must have been like 13, 14 years ago. That was when it was still relatively new. And I always played Horde. I never played Alliance. But then we kind of broke out of it. The game got way too addictive. So I never stuck. It was nice to kind of get my life back after, we didn't play it for years and years or anything, but there was a while where it was like, you're playing it and you're leveling, and then you have to then you join a guild and you have to get home in time for the raids and stuff. It was like too much responsibility. And then being part of social groups, I'm so like socially awkward anyways. It was, sometimes I get a little overwhelmed in groups and stuff like that. So I got my freedom back. I broke free from from that game. But it's a fun game. IWW membership is at decades highs now, though. Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. CNT always had funny slogan in France. Are you Spanish, Catboy? Why won't they approve my explicit messages? Yeah, so it's just, there's some message. Actually, I don't see any not coming through. Oh. Yeah, we're just a little careful with language in here because, we want to make sure, it's, we let people with differing viewpoints in here and we try to have discussions, but there is a line where we got to be careful because then things can fall apart quickly. So we just try to be a little careful with the explicit messages getting approved. You are, but not living in Spain anymore. Okay, oppression is not a job. Yeah, police unions at this point. I'm not going to lose any sleep over protecting police unions because as far as I can tell, police unions are working against people. But yeah, so to me, that's a little bit of a separate category. But yeah. Is it fair to say Dem's going to lose the House in 2022? Well, so we just had a new census, so there's going to be redistricting and all that kind of stuff. So it depends. Are the Republicans going to gerrymander the heck out of any district they can? Yes. Will that lead to them getting more seats in the House? Possibly. If I had to guess, I would say and this is just a wild guess at this point, the Democrats will hold the House in 2022, but they'll lose seats, would be my guess. But who knows? It just depends what level of gerrymandering goes on in the meantime, right? If the Republicans repeat what they did in 2010, it could be ugly. And let's face it, the Republicans, when was the last time the Republicans de-escalated their corruption? Not for a very long time, right? They learn and they go further the next time. So if we take the level of gerrymandering that occurred in 2010 and we expand it and recognize that we now have a Supreme Court, the Supreme Court that we've had for the last few years didn't want to overturn gerrymandering. This current Supreme Court is absolutely not going to overturn gerrymandering. So it's possible they could lose the House in 2022. But if all things are done fairly, I think they'll just lose the Dems will lose a few seats. Interesting take there. I'm not going to read that one, but it's an interesting take. There are things that could be changed in U.S. right now. Free education until university, free universal health care, abolish death penalty. You mean free education in university? Because right now K-12 is free, but you mean but yeah, universal health care, free college education, those things could help people immediately. Absolutely. The more democratic a union is, the less corruption is possible. Yeah, and you have stuff in place so that people can't get, so that basically there's checks and balances inside of a union, and you don't have one person who's able to leverage the union in order to advance their own selves. I am not familiar with anarcho-Garfieldism, but I'm definitely interested. I know Thought Slime had some videos on Garfield, which were super interesting and entertaining, but I don't know about anarcho-Garfieldism. Clyde Sin, you got to learn your WOB history. What is WOB history? What is WOB? What am I missing? What is WOB? WOB. But yeah, I'm a fan of interesting history. I find it good stuff. I trust the mod not to be too harsh. Thanks again. Yeah, we got great. We got Anarcho Taco's amazing mod in here. He does a great job with stuff, so he knows what he's doing. They have been on the forefront of workers' rights for over a century. Oh, okay. Cool. The IWW and Wobblies are anarcho-syndicalists, have been around since World War II. Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. CNT exists in different European countries. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a Spanish thing. CNT history is interesting. Yeah. Poor people. I'm sure they are running away. F on Spanish Civil War. Yeah, 1905 actually. Oh wow. Yeah, you were Alliance. Yeah. I always just kind of like I don't know. I always thought the humans were a little more boring and stuff, but the Horde were kind of cool characters. Okay. I understand now why your leftism, political law, my grandpas were the same. Okay. Right. Why don't you? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that's well, yeah, I'm going to stay out of that. I'll let you guys handle the abortion topic in chat there. Wobblies are the nickname of members of the, oh, okay. I see. Members of the IWW. Okay, cool. Let's move forward. All right, what do we got for this one? Wisconsin recount adds 87 votes to Biden's victory over Trump. That's kind of the takeaway. Trump paid $3 million to pay for a recount that lost him. He didn't lose 87 votes, but his opponent gained 87 votes. So probably not a $3 million well spent, unless you view it as... unless you view this as, most of the people, most of Trump's followers are never going to know this outcome. They're just going to, again, it's this idea of, well, there's all this uproar, there's all this fraud going on, and they're just going to stick to the fraud. We see it in the chat here where, and I'm not talking about the people who are in here today, but we do get that from time to time where people jump in and just go, oh man, what about all this corruption and voter fraud? And it's like, okay, actually read about the cases and realize that the judges are literally laughing in Giuliani's face over this kind of stuff, right? I'll check that out. I'll save that link. Let's see. Let's put that one over here so I can vet it. But I'll check out the Everett massacre. I'll check that out later. Yeah, I'll look into that. Well, where was I on here? Where was my... Oops, we'll get to that one in a minute. Oops, all these great stories we're going to talk about in a minute. Here we go. So anyways, Trump paid a ton of money to have Biden win by a larger victory than he previously had. That's kind of where that story's going. Yeah, right. Good conversations going on. Okay, here we go. Here's one that should sort of bad news for the otters, right? Not a good time to be an otter here. Weaker penis bones in river otters linked to oil sands contaminants in new study. The findings could point to a broader environmental consequence in the region, says researchers. So that's obviously not a good thing, right? You could just imagine as a human, that sounds terrible if you're that otter right there, that cute little otter. It's got some medical problems. New study has found that hydrocarbon contaminants typically associated with oil sands operations are contributing to decreased penis bone strength among river otters. That might sound like a quirky bit of science clickbait, but the study's primary author warns that his findings could have broader consequences for wildlife and human health in the oil sands region in northern Alberta. We've demonstrated how the bone health measure of the penis bone is tied to exposure to certain trace elements and to hydrocarbons. So basically environmental problems are contributing to animals' weakened ability to reproduce, right, is the sort of bottom line here. It's not too far of a stretch to say that this is going to make it harder for them to reproduce. And that's kind of what the authors are talking about here. Yeah. So obviously the otters don't appreciate it, and they're, the otters are probably not happy about it, but also people in the area should be concerned. Let's see. Oh, I'm not actually going to play the video here because I think we can get to the point quicker. But basically, this article is talking about how Fauci is saying that it's going to be longer before we can give the vaccine to kids, because generally to have it approved for children takes longer because children are still developing. And it's been shown that with most things that are medically related, if you give something to someone when they're younger, there's more chance of that messing up the system, right? So you have to be much more careful with children than you are with adults. and that. So you have to, you have to be careful about that. So it's entirely possible that kids won't be getting the vaccine until summer or even close into fall. They're talking about like August, September might start to be when they get when they get the vaccine. And there's discussion starting to be had about how they're going to roll out the vaccine in this country, like what the time frame is for that and what it's going to be. So it's it's an interesting discussion there. We'll see how that rolls out. So let's see. There was a question for me. Where was the Hey Perspectives? What are your thoughts and opinions on Chaz? So, man, it's been a while since I've caught up on that. But the Chaz was a situation where it just didn't seem like it was maybe well organized. Like it could have been done a little differently. I did a few videos. Back then, I wasn't streaming. I was doing YouTube videos on my YouTube channel. And I covered that a few times. It was really hard to get news. Depending on what news you read, you would get different stories about what went on in there. And obviously, it wasn't going to last. It's not like it was going to stay that way and they held it much longer than I thought they were going to hold it. But it's not a sustainable situation, right? And you can say, well, it was a way to send a message. Maybe that's entirely possible. I kind of like focusing on things that are going to affect like lasting change and sustainable. But it was interesting to kind of see. It was a bit of an experiment that got run, right? And kind of see how that turned out. Why do you buy some land so you can? Let's see, where are we? When Chaz first happened, let's see. So there's discussion on it. Can we do a straw poll on what? What is the straw poll on? Straw poll on like what people feel about the on Chaz. I don't remember how to do straw polls on here. I think, in fact, that's something I'll put that on the list to look into. I don't remember if I have that set up or not, but I think can't people do straw polls as well? Either way, yeah. Okay. All right. Bernie Sanders says GOP has ceased to be a political party and is now a cult in fiery rebuke of Trump fraud claims. Oh, is that what it is? Okay, I can't remember. Okay, cool. Republicans in Washington have, if we want to do let's see. I don't know if there's anything over that we need a poll for right now. I don't know if that's necessary right now, but we'll see. Republicans in Washington have largely remained silent as the president lies about voting fraud pressures elected officials. So only a few high-profile Republicans in Washington, like Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, have dared to criticize the president's post-election conduct, even as his associates continue to repeat false conspiracies about the election and take highly controversial moves, like the president personally calling election officials in Michigan to pressure them to decertify results. So basically, Bernie Sanders is saying it is beyond pathetic for a sitting president to try to subvert the results of an election. It is even worse when the Republican Party, with few exceptions, remains silent over this outrageous attack on democracy. The GOP has ceased to be a political party. It is now a cult. And I think Bernie Sanders definitely has a point. I was a little surprised once Trump lost why people were not going after him, or at least being able to say, hey, these are the results. Why are the Republicans being so careful? And I guess it's because we're seeing those those MAGA supporters are still willing to turn on those Republicans. But it's fair to say that it's looking more and more like Trump's not going away. Like, he's not gone yet. I don't think he's not going to be the president for the next 4 years. But again, like we talked, it's starting to look like he could be a major force in 2024 again. So if that's true, that means that we have to, they still might have reason to fear him, right? They might have reason to fear that he could be right back in 3 years, 2-3 years, hurting them. So that's why they're so afraid. And I think it's fair to say at that point, what you don't have, like, let's remember how this works. Everyone always wants to talk about the founding fathers. Not everyone. There's one side in particular that always wants to talk about the founding fathers. What did the founding fathers want? What about the original Constitution? The original Constitution was not built to have two teams fighting each other. In fact, the book that Peyton and I are reading for tomorrow's book club, Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop, what we have today is literally exactly what the founding fathers did not want to have, right? When they originally wrote the Constitution, it was written in a way that they thought would make sure it never led to what we have today, which is two parties smashing each other again and again, creating this ultra partisanship. They were saying that will lead to not representing the people, and that's what we see today. So that's a problem. That's where we're at. Kind of lost my train of thought there, but it makes sense. It's more like a religion. It's more about your team. Let's protect our team rather than let's make sure that we're representing the people. The people we elect are supposed to represent us, not go to Washington and then fight for a specific team. You're supposed to represent the people, and that's not what we have anymore. So I think Bernie Sanders has some basis for saying this, for this take that's right here. Why not just help people? Like Medicare for all. 50% of the Republican Party supports Medicare for all in numerous polls and studies that have come out that have shown that. That's 2/3 of the American people, but even 50% of Republicans, and yet we don't see anything like that. We don't see it even getting brought up, right? Our representatives are not supporting us. They're too busy fighting this team battle. And the Democrats do the same thing, right? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're more concerned about, running their party than they are about the people, right? Representing the people in this country. And it's not good. All right. The Kraken lawsuit was released, and it's way dumber than you realize, right? I love the way this article was written. It's fairly snarky. But I looked it up. The Bulwark, I'm not familiar with the Bulwark, but I looked them up, and they're actually considered a credible news source. So, and see the byline here? Reading it is guaranteed to give you a headache. See how there's no spaces in there? That's not a mistake. They did it because the legal paperwork is full of it. It's literally full of like typos and misspellings and stuff. It's totally out of control. Okay, so every time you think you have a grasp on how preposterous the Trump team's elections lawsuits are, another one comes out dumber and more conspiracy-filled than the last. The Pennsylvania monstrosity that was submitted by Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and the Four Seasons total litigation supporting cast was terrible. It made, according to a federal appeals court ruling, vague and conclusory allegations about alleged misconduct, tried to get the court to do things that would violate the U.S. Constitution, and had, in the court's words, no merit. Their case was such complete nonsense that 2 courts and 4 judges decided it was too dumb to fix. It's great writing, but that's the conclusion they came to. You want that to be the bottom. You want the lawsuit that the president's legal team lost twice for literally every reason it's possible to lose the case to be the most preposterous election lawsuit we're going to see this year. You go to bed Wednesday night hoping that was it, and you wake up disappointed Thursday morning because while you slept, Sidney Powell released the Kraken. They were calling it the Kraken for a while, right? Oh, great question, Catboy. I'll bring that up in just a minute. I'll talk about that as soon as we're done with this article. I'll address, because that's an outstanding question that I like talking about. Powell had been threatening to release the Kraken for the last week. Remember, she's the one that like Trump, they basically spaced her and said, like, we want to put some distance between you and us because you're saying weird stuff. But she's still working for them, essentially, like creating lawsuits. But she doesn't officially work for the Trump legal team anymore. After being unpersoned by the Trump legal team following a press conference in which she spouted conspiracy theories so insane that even Giuliani's hair dye was trying to get out of the room. It wasn't clear what the Kraken was until it was released, and we learned that it had taken the form of matching his and her lawsuits in Georgia and Michigan, lawsuits that have redefined rock bottom. So basically, here's what you do, right? When you turn in an essay for school, or you write some kind of a document for work that's really important people are going to read it, you read it a second time and you try to do things like catch typos and make sure that it's written well and that it makes sense. Because if you're trying to achieve some goal, having a very poorly written document doesn't help your case. So what happened was the document that they turned in is absolutely full of misspellings, right? That should be a no-brainer because there's spell check. So when she spelled district wrong 4 different ways, actually, she spelled it 4 different ways. One of them was correct. You'd think a computer would have caught the other 3 if you just spell checked it, right? And then they did that thing we saw at the top of the page where they had sentences with no spaces in them. So this is from the actual article right here. See this line? It's like a whole sentence with no spaces in it. How do you be a professional lawyer at a high level fighting for this kind of stuff and you turn stuff like that in? It's weird. But those are little nitpicky stuff, right? If the law is still the law, so you got to fight it on the legal merits, okay? That kind of spacing problem recurs throughout. The document is practically unreadable. But as specious as the legal arguments are, and as incomprehensible as the copy is, the craziest thing about the case is the substance. The complaint reads like it was drafted at the after party for a 3-day QAnon convention, and it might have been, given that it was one of Powell's more absurd witnesses, is Ronald Watkins. So they called in this guy, Ronald Watkins, to be an expert on these voting machines, the Dominion voting machines. Guess what his background is to be an expert in the Dominion voting machines? This came before the court, and they had to ask about this. His background is that he read the manual. That's why he's an expert. He read the manual on the voting machine, and then he testifies as an expert because he read the manual. You'd think you could get a little bit more than that. So the judge was not impressed, right? And then they did this thing where, see like right here where they blacked it out? So they wrote, if one question the reliability of my observations, they only have to read the words of redacted. So they wanted to claim that they have like these special witnesses that like, oh, these people have all the information, but we have to keep their identity secret. Nobody can know who they are. But all you have to do is read the words of this person. We're not going to tell you who the person is, but trust me, all you have, if you knew who these people were, they would tell you. It's clearly all just nonsense, right? Let's see, where am I? So it's all just silliness, right? They put a bunch of like diagrams and stuff in there that didn't add up. Let's see, was there any more? This is especially the case when the claim you are making is bonkers. An expert's declaration as this Iranian APT teams were seen using Acuntex, a website scanning software to find vulnerabilities within election companies' websites confirmed to be used by the Iranian APT team. They seized cloud storage that I had personally captured and reported to higher authorities. But then they couldn't back up any of this information. There was no actual evidence of anything in this lawsuit. So basically, this isn't even this thing that was put forth as the lawsuit. You wouldn't even expect that from like a brand new lawyer. And these are the president's lawyers trying to fight the case that they should be deciding the presidency of the United States. So this this is what I mean, and it kind of drives me nuts in chat sometimes lately where people are popping in and they're going, well, what about all these fraudulent ballots? And you go, yeah, actually look into it, read about it, and you realize that all of this stuff about fraudulent ballots, it's all nonsense. there's nothing to any of it, right? You look into any of these stories, sure, were there a couple of cases where people did fraud? I'm sure out of 340 million people or however many, no, what would it be? About 140 million people voted, 150 million people, a little more than that. Of course, there's going to be a few ballots here and there. Anything on the level that would in any way affect the election? No. And there's actually good evidence that most of the fraud was done for Trump. There appears to be at least as much fraud for Trump as there was for Biden. And the truth is, in both cases, there wasn't very much, not enough to make a difference. Okay, let me address Catboy's question. What do you think are the possibilities of more political parties breaking out in the USA soon? So that's great. Peyton and I on the book club are reading the book called Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop. And actually, we finish tomorrow. We conclude the book tomorrow, assuming Peyton's back and we're back on track. And the answer is it's not going to happen soon. The system that we currently have set up in this country, the way it is today, you can only have a two-party system that is useful, right? That's why the Green Party has not seen growth. That's why the way it is now, the Movement for a People's Party, even though I'm really supportive of the Movement for a People's Party, they are going to remain small under current situations because of the way we do voting with the plurality, first past the post voting type systems in this country. The only way we are going to see new parties in the United States do well is if we move to a different voting system. Okay. And there's a few of them. And when we talk about this on stream, people will bring up various different types of voting, and they're good. There are merits to all of them. The most popular one right now is ranked choice voting. And I'm a strong supporter of ranked choice voting for a number of reasons. And the reason I picked ranked choice voting over the other flavors of voting is because there's actually a chance of getting ranked choice voting passed right now. Some states are doing it. So Maine has had ranked choice voting. Alaska just passed ranked choice voting. I believe it failed in Massachusetts, but if I had to guess, I would say they'll vote on it again next time and it'll pass. California got through our legislature, and then our governor, who some people are saying might run for president in the future, he vetoed it. So he's on the bad list in my book. But you need ranked choice voting. Once you have ranked choice voting, then you will start to see other parties getting a reasonable amount of the vote. It will allow for other parties. I think if we had ranked choice voting, I think you would see the Movement for a People's Party explode. I think you would see a lot more people voting for the Green Party. Both of those parties could do very well, but we have to change that system. So, and I forget, Catboy, you're not in the United States, right? You're in a different country. But in the U.S., if you actually are someone who is supportive of having more than two parties, which actually most of the country is, vote for ranked choice voting, and you can do that. Because right now, if you vote Green or you vote Movement for a People's Party, at least on the presidential level, your vote is thrown away. It will never amount to anything. Under a ranked choice voting system, you can vote for who you want, and then you can make the safe choice, like a Bernie Sanders or not Bernie Sanders, but like say this year, you could vote Green Party, and then your number 2 choice could be Biden. So when your first level candidate gets eliminated, your vote would go to Biden. So you wouldn't have this situation we have now where, like this year, I had to vote for Biden because I had to make sure Trump didn't get in there. We wouldn't have that, right? So what they'll say a lot of times is, if you vote for third party, you're throwing your vote away. Under our current situation, yes. In 20 years, when we have more states doing ranked choice voting, you very much could see third parties come about. So that's kind of the biggest thing that needs to happen for third parties. There's other things they talk about in that book, which would be very helpful. But that number one thing we need, if we actually care about other parties, is ranked choice voting. That's kind of the biggest one there. Yeah, let's see. There's a lot. Let's see. Oh, and we got somebody new in there, Jesus. Hey, Jesus, welcome to the channel. Good to see you in here. What do we got? I know this shows how naive I must be, but I truly struggle to imagine Trump keeping up this fight until inauguration. He has to see it's hopeless. Right, and I think it's hopeless, I think, at this point for him to win the presidency. He's setting himself up. It's starting to look more and more like he's setting himself up to run again in 2024. So, unfortunately, I think we're going to be hearing about Trump for the next 4 years, because he's gonna get his base as riled up as he can for the next couple of months, and then he's probably going to go start his own streaming channel and get things going that way. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're going to see that. But anyways, welcome. Where were you? Where was your name? Sorry, I lost it in there somewhere. Anyways, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Yeah, AOC creating a new party would be great, right? She would be one. Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. All right, where are we on things? Let's see. Let me give a check-in. Where are we at with stuff? Let's see. We'll probably call it there. Trying to think who who do we want to go with? Any ideas, Anarcho Taco, who we should raid into? Trying to look who looks good today. Not sure. Yeah, so anyways, thanks everybody for checking out the stream. So I stream news Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right around 3 o'clock, and then go till 5:36, somewhere around in there. Great conversations today, great participation. Glad to see anybody in here. Anybody who's hanging out and wants to catch me next time, make sure you hit follow so you'll see when I go live, and you can come be part of the conversation. Was good to have some. I always love it when there's people around the country or around the world, coming in and giving different points of view, and then we saw some different kind of stuff popping up in there. So. Yep, definitely good stuff. Oh, thanks, Heizu, for the follow. That's right. That was the name, Heizu. Thanks for the follow. Hopefully we'll see you next time and can hop in and be part of the conversation there. So let's see. Tungsten Volt hot take, but it seems like that people are using the word woke just want to be racist or dog woke. Oh, right. So you use it as woke as like to attack people. Yeah, actually on my channel, there's certain words I try to avoid. Like fascist is one you heard a lot this year. Woke is another one. I kind of try to avoid those words myself because they seem to trigger like an emotion in people. And then it takes away from like the effectiveness of us like trying to have a conversation. So like, I didn't call Trump fascist that much because I was trying, like you try to have the conversation. If you can avoid that word, I feel like you can have much more effective conversations about it. I think what Tungsten Volt's talking about is that when people are using it against, I think he's talking about when people are using it against the like say the left, where it's like they're accusing you of trying to be woke. At least that's how I interpret it. It's kind of like when people talk about like SJWs and stuff, like it's usually used in a very like derogatory way. I think that's what he's talking about. Yeah, right. It's a way of sort of minimizing a person's message. It's a way of like taking it down. That's why, yeah, there's certain vocabulary I avoid because it can get a little bit toxic in there. All right, so thanks everybody. We'll see you. Why don't we raid into $27? We'll see how he's doing. And thanks again, everybody. Great conversation, and we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.